Hello, everybody. Welcome to Planet FPL, the world where everything revolves around Fantasy Premier League. My name's Suj.
And my name is James.
Oh, international break again, James, but to be honest, I'm quite grateful for this one. It's always better going into a break when it's bad because it gives you a time to regroup as opposed to when you go in and it's good because obviously you want to maintain momentum, right?
No, there's two sides to this. One, I have to think about what Tottenham have done again for 2 weeks, like they keep doing before every effing international break.
Oh, did you lose? Oh.
Good showing yesterday. Oh, you. Did you lose? You wanker.
Listen, last week, we all had to put up with your dom-dom-didoms. Do you want to sing that one today?
Dom-dom-didom-dom-dom.
Here's another one for you.
Blank.
Dom-dom-dom-dom-dom-dom-dom-dom.
My God, I need an Undertaker.
Funeral march for your fucking fifth place challenge, mate, because if you keep doing that, you're just the most frustrating team.
So I can have 2 weeks thinking like I've got to think about this result for 2 weeks and then look forward to the easy trip to Manchester City. Or I can at least look at this point and go, well, Tottenham can't ruin my weekend this week. So I'll try and take the positives as per usual.
Listen, tell me, I was back in England for a couple of days at the end of last week. And by the time I got back to Portugal Friday night, I started feeling rough. But Saturday morning, I was, a fever and shivering and not feeling good at all. So much so, I dragged myself out of bed to watch West Ham on the telly at 3:00.
That put you straight back in bed.
Mate, I lasted till half time. And then literally at half time, I chucked the remote to my missus and said, "This TV's all yours." I put it on my phone and just went back to bed and had it, watched it. I just knew at half time. It made me worse, mate. I was just like, this is atrocious. So, we're both in the same boat. At least you probably scored a few more FPL points than me.
Well, we sound like we need an intervention this week. Still, at least you had a good FPL week, right?
Well, exactly that, right? I made, crazily, I'd been holding out until the international break to keep rolling my transfers to kind of mini wildcard. And I ended up pulling the trigger earlier than I expected on my moves because looking at it, I decided that if I was going to go to a Wolves attacker, then I couldn't wait, right? It was the time to do it. Mo Salah was killing me each and every week. And I agree with what you and Clayton said on the Clayton and James show, which was that, not the Clayton and James show, the differential show, sorry, for patrons, that actually Liverpool were going to do well against Aston Villa. And Aston Villa have been a bit ropey in certain away games after European football. And they were away in Europe and then away at Liverpool, whereas Liverpool are at home in Europe and at home. So I thought Mo Salah, I think he'll do all right. And by the time I'd made the Mo Salah and Strand Larsen moves, I had enough money that I looked at it and thought, who can I buy that will improve my 11 this week? And then I would want moving forward. So I decided to get rid of Dibbling and move him to Semenyo, because I like Semenyo's fixtures coming up, and Bournemouth have been doing okay, which meant Rodgers dropped down to the bench. Now, my transfers made a net gain in my team of 1 point for the week. Had I kept Haaland, because Smith Rowe obviously did well. But I don't mind my transfers, to be honest with you. I'm quite happy with the way the team looks. The outcome this week just didn't work out. Like, I've ended up with 3 returns, 2 assists, one for Pedro Porro and one for Brian and Bomo, and Salah. And in the meantime, I've gone with Strand Larsen over Cunha, and that was literally to give me more money to make a couple of moves that I had earmarked in kind of game week 13, 14, defensively mainly, trying to get to double Arsenal defence and Raya. I still not get to clean sheet or a goalkeeper clean sheet yet this season. And Wolves scored 2 goals and he had no involvement. So, it is what it is. Bought Semenyo. Bournemouth scored 2 goals, no involvement. Brian and Bumo, Brentford scored 3 goals, just an assist out of it. So these kind of little bits and pieces, it is what it is. And the biggest disappointment of all is your team, James, because obviously you'd scored 3 or more goals in every home game except one. Remind me who that was? I can't remember.
Jog on, man. I've had a bad enough weekend.
And I genuinely, when I bought Salah, I did think, right, okay, who's more likely to let me down? It's Solanke, right? Spurs are more likely to screw up. Should I just go safe or not? And this is probably a conversation around effective ownership, because Salah's points cost me 50,000 in rank. And I looked at it and I'm like, if I want look, I've earned points from Salah, but it's cost me rank. So am I better off when that happens with effective ownership to make Salah's points count and captain him, or go for the bigger upside of captain him Solanke, where the effective ownership's right 35, 40%. So had Solanke hit, it could have hit bigger, but the fact that Mo did hit hurt me in the end. So it was a bizarre one, James. And obviously this was my first weekend not owning Erling Haaland. I would say that now that I've had that experience, not owning Haaland is far more scary than not owning Salah. But Salah's points are far more enjoyable than Erling Haaland's. Yeah.
You must have been shitting yourself.
Yeah, I did. I had it on my phone as well, because at that point I was lying in bed doing nothing. I was like, okay, I can watch a bit of both the games, actually, the 5:30 and the 8 o'clock. Yes, I was. But here's the interesting thing, right? Well, first half, yeah, for sure. After Salah had got the assist into the second half, I knew that any Salah goal was an 8-point goal. I was like, if Salah scores, which he's capable, I'm going to get a massive haul here. And I never feel like that with Erling Haaland, to be honest with you. So, yes, probably got away with it always. I think I now understand the fear of not owning Haaland, which is horrible. But I also understand the joy of Mo Salah. But I don't know how I can have the joy of Mo Salah, because he cost me rank in the end.
You'll probably captain him in Gameweek 12. I think it's that if you're in certain positions at certain stages, then using the EO card, he's absolutely fine. My only card this week was that I thought the Solanke would outscore Salah.
Yeah, no, that was it.
That's
in the end,
no regret.
I looked at it and I'm like, no, 4 against Everton, 4 against Villa, 4 against West Ham, 3 against, remind me, 3 at home. You scored against someone else as well. Brentford. So I'm like, come on, man. And okay, none against Arsenal, but it's Arsenal. So how can I go against it? My gut instinct was that you would score a lot of goals yesterday. And much as I thought Salah would do okay, I thought it's still Villa versus Ipswich.
Probably quite an easy one for me, because you'll remember that prior to Villa, I kept saying to you, my intention is to captain Dominic Solanke in Gameweek 11. Yep. So a number have obviously chased after that, not specifically after me, but obviously off the back of a couple of goals against Villa. People will have had it rammed down their throats all week about Tottenham having the best non-penalty XG in the league and Ipswich having the worst. Like, if you're not going to take it at certain points, fine. It didn't work out. He had opportunities yesterday. He's had a chance at the end that he's not taken very well. Should have scored, to be honest. I wouldn't regret. I'd go back to Friday. I make the same decision again, mate.
Yeah, I'm 20 points off safety, which, yeah, had I captained Salah, I'd be halfway there. And then I think the other thing is, a lot of the returns this week where people have done well are those 5-6 million pound, like Acuna's done well here and Smith Rowe's done well here, and then Fabianski getting a clean sheet and Rayan Aït-Nouri keeping a clean sheet. These are all the kind of fringe players. I just happen to have a week where my fringe players didn't do it. And it can happen any given week, really. So I'm not overly worried about it. 20 points to lose in a game week isn't great, but it's 20 points. It's like, it can come back within 2 weeks, right? 2 good weeks and you're back to where you are. So 834k doesn't look great, but like I said, I'm not overly worried about my team. And I've got ideas of where I want to go, right? I'm thinking Isak, Lewis Hall coming in for Lewis, a couple of weeks' time. I was considering maybe Mbomo to Bruno Fernandes, though that's very low on the list of potential moves. Maybe even finding a way to get to Saka If I drop Watkins down and go and Bomo to Saka in a few weeks' time, David Raya is definitely on the cards. Few moves there. Like I'd quite like a wild card now, to be honest with you, but
Yeah.
it's
You and
also not.
everybody else.
Yeah, but it's also not desperate, right? Like Ollie Watkins, yeah, great. He's not had a great run. It's Crystal Palace at home next week. I think there's only one team that hasn't scored against Palace all season, so I think Ollie Watkins is fine. Morgan Rogers, I can play again. And I'll actually, this is the irony, I'll bench Strand Larson next week. I was going to ask you what your thoughts are on that, because I've got Semenyo and Rogers. Semenyo, Rogers, Strand Larson's my threesome. So I have to bench the one with the worst fixture. His fixture's away. The other two are at home.
I suggest you start with a different type of pawn, mate, personally. Yeah, probably would bench Larson for that.
Yeah,
so
Fulham away.
Fulham a good side.
Yeah, exactly that. So Strand Larson will get benched next week. I'm fairly comfortable at the moment. There's no one in my squad.
Didn't mention Solanke as part of that, so, or are you thinking you're selling him?
I think you guys are going to do quite. You saw the second half against Brighton, mate, when they just dropped that ball in behind. The pace of Mitoma and the running in behind, and the way that they were able to get at the defence of City. I don't want to say it, James, but I think, let me whisper it. I think you'll do okay against City.
Anyway.
Yeah, you know, it's one of them, right? You don't want to say it. I don't want to say it. It's City. It's City away. But
no, I think we'll probably, in a weird way, we'll find it easier to play against them than we do
Ipswich.
Against many other teams. But at the same time, like, you can tell that we can get hurt by anybody.
Yeah, but it's an attacking asset, Solanke. It's not a defensive asset.
Yes, I'm looking at Pedro Porro with a different problem, probably. You've got Porro, though, haven't you?
Yeah, I've got Porro. So I was looking at Rico Lewis to Lewis Hall. Sorry, let me be clear there. Or Pedro Porro to Lewis Hall. I could do Rico Lewis to Lewis Hall and then bench Porro and play Lewis Hall. That's on my radar of moves I want to make. But then if I wanted to do Watkins to Isak or Solanke to Isak, then it's a hit. I don't know if I want to do it for a hit. I don't know if it's worth it, James. Like, what's Lewis Hall? 6 points? I'd rather just run the risk with Porro or Lewis, and you never know, they might pop up with an assist or something. I don't think it's worth it.
So 55 points for me. Another red down to 52k. I mean, I've known that this dead space period, as I'd called it, 9 to 11 was going to be particularly challenging for me, and I wanted to get myself really nicely set to go against this army of wildcarders that I know is now going to be out there. I'm not set as well as I wanted to be because of an injury at the weekend, which is something that always can happen. I decided to change my mind on Friday evening. I was always going Salah in place of Saka. I needed to make a move to fund that. The intention had been Trent to Lewis Hall. It changed my mind looking deeper on Friday night and went Watkins to Larson. Before anyone starts, no, Suj copied my moves rather than me copying his moves.
Yeah, neither copied neither.
Well, mine was out there first, I'm just saying.
Yes.
So now I look like the fucking cartel leader.
On the Diff show, you didn't even, I listened to the Diff show, you didn't even mention Strand Larson. You didn't even say that he was on your thoughts.
He was on my thoughts because if I was going to go for an enabling forward, that's where I was going again. What you said earlier. Are you drinking piss again, Suj?
Yeah. It's vitamin C. Let me do it. The irony was, the only time I saw you bought it was when I went to copy paste your tweet. I always go copy paste it and just change the name.
Hang on, is urine vitamin C?
It's good for you. Don't worry about it. Head over to YouTube, and while you're there, smash a like and subscribe to our YouTube channel to watch me drinking urine.
And if you're listening to the audio, 5-star review, please. It was looking again at strategy right up until New Year, and wanting to open up different avenues to potentially look at even making a move such as Bumo to Saka when Brentford fixtures get tougher. And you say, "Oh, you just sold Saka." I knew I had to get Mo in. That was enough. And at least I got him in, right? Because had I not done so, I'm looking at a disaster.
It'd be even worse,
this week.
Yeah.
Exactly
me the same,
that.
Right? Had I not done that.
So
although I would have had Smith Rowe, so kind of not, but yeah.
In terms of transfers, I'm up like 12 odd points on the transfers, right? Which is near enough kind of difference between us this week. Yeah, I changed my mind based on giving myself a couple of options for future moves. And it still meant Trent was on the chopping block for me, but I didn't want to sell Trent this week, the more I thought about it, because I really fancied them for a clean sheet. And then
Bad
obviously
luck.
Southampton next. So, James, you've been so lucky this year. It's the second Liverpool player I've got who's gone off injured in the first half. At least I didn't have the armband
Yeah, I was going to say at least he's not
on
captain.
Trent this time. So it is what it is, right? But therefore, in terms of the decision I made, pretty happy actually with the decision I made. Just the outcome from Trent's perspective, obviously not worked out. And if I'd gone Lewis Hall, it was part thinking about getting ready for game week 12 and then playing yourselves, basically, Suj. So that's still maybe the one I'd go to. But I do feel it's opened up a few other options for me now. So Trent's going to go. There's not really much reason for me to hold on to that. Chelsea are on radar for me defensively. And I don't think they'll be on many people's radars because they're not keeping many clean sheets. But their fixture run at long term is really good now to go and have a Colwell or Fofana and have it rotate. Lewis Hall is obviously still an option for me. Going treble Arsenal is an option.
You've got two already. Just so people
I've
know,
got
you've
Raya
got two
and
already.
Gabriel, yeah.
So you're adding a third.
Reasons
I want to go double, so I can't really argue against going treble.
Well, reasons to be put off by it would be William Saliba has had 0 efforts on goal so far this season, so there's nothing there, which means he probably inevitably scores now in game week 12. But it does cut me off for Saka and Havertz at any point, and I think that would be the biggest reason not to. So it's downgrade Trent to Lewis Hall or a Chelsea player is the more likely for me at the moment. But you know the moves that I wanted to make this week, and it's irrespective of the blanket weekend because I've had my eyes on it for weeks. It's Solanke to Isak.
Yep.
You have the exact money in the bank. This is part of the change as well. That was a big call for me because if I'd gone the Lewis Hall route, I was dead of Isak. And I would have been dead of Isak even if, so I would have been stuck with Solanke. And obviously if Jackson got booked, I wouldn't have been able to go to Jackson to Isak for free. So that was a big thing in terms of the change for me as well. I want to go Solanke to Isak. I have the exact money in the bank. Alexander Isak never gets injured, does he, Suj?
Yeah, it's a tricky one. It's weird that I don't know if it's worth it for me. Like Watkins at home to Crystal Palace, or I could go Solanke to Isak. But I'm looking at Solanke. Your next home game is Fulham.
Yeah, they're good.
They are good. This is it. I'm just debating. Do I think Tottenham will revert back to type at home and do well? Do I want to keep him for that or just let it go? And I would rather, if I'm going to make a move this week, I'd rather make the offensive one and look at the upside of Isak than a defensive one and try and mitigate Porro at Spurs or something stupid like that. So,
for me, when you look at Tottenham's next four, City away, Fulham at home, Bournemouth away, Chelsea at home, I think Solanke will be consistent and he'll get returns. There's no concern. This isn't reaction.
2 or 3 returns across all of them, yeah.
Yeah, but I think, like, for example, an Isak could go off enough against West Ham in
just
game week 12
cover it, yeah.
Yeah, I would. Yeah. This is part of the reason I wanted to dance around these forwards. Just not I desperately want to sell Solanke. It's I want to get Alexander Isak, and that's always been what I wanted to do this game week. Now, of course, if I don't go Isak early, I'm priced out.
If he has a price rise.
But then I've got my excuse, haven't I, to take the -4 for selling Trent because I will be priced out of Isak. So rather than being, like -4 for a defender in a weird way, I'll have my excuse. I have to sell Trent as part of the -4 to get me Isak. So I think, that's what I'll probably end up doing. Is probably taking first hit for the season. I think it will be Hall or one of the Chelsea defenders, most likely. And I'll go Solanke to Isak. But it's an international break to get through and nothing could go wrong, could it?
No, there haven't been too many price rises. Obviously, the price rise indicators, whether you're using statistics or whatever, get thrown to wobbly when all these wildcards get played because there was a lot of price drops and price rises that were showing over the weekend that didn't actually happen. But I think that's clearly because a lot of people pulled the trigger on wildcard, right?
Yeah, there'll be a number of wildcards active now, no doubt about it.
I think I saw Gianni say that 20% of people still have their wild card and 10% of those, and so half of them are going to play it this week.
Yeah, I can understand that.
So yeah, quite a lot. So that's 10% of the game, really, are going to be on wildcard this week.
And I think there's a number of players you could say with certainty go in to those wildcards now. Isak is one, I think, nearly all cases. I think João Pedro's going to go in for the majority of those wild cards.
Yeah.
Salah, Palmer, obvious. I think still Bumo because there's a couple of good fixtures still.
Yep.
I think Arsenal defensive at this stage. I think Lewis Hall, because of his value, will be quite popular on wild cards. There's a number there that you know it's going to kind of be 5 or 6 of that
A
wild
lot of
card.
people were looking at Forest defensively as well. I think that might have cooled a little bit having conceded 3 yesterday, and then their fixtures get tougher.
But it's also
But Matt Sells
Arsenal,
is still,
City, and United away 3 of the next 4. So
yeah, yeah. Let's get into the games, James, shall we?
yeah, before we do, just a clarity, particularly for the audio listeners, so 55 for me.
Yep.
Fabianski, I got a West Ham clean sheet in fantasy.
You didn't get a West Ham clean sheet. You got a West Ham 9-pointer clean sheet,
unlocked.
James.
Ray and 8 Norrie 6 point. I got a Wolves clean sheet in fantasy. Achievement unlocked. Essentially, those two have kind of saved the game week for me this week. And Alejandro Garnacho benched, but on as a scoring substitute for a 6-pointer. And again, had I not bought Mo, disaster. It would have been easy for me to go Raya and Gabriel because I benched both, right? So those returns are actually pretty pleasing. 8 Norrie, I couldn't have left out against Southampton. I don't think I could have left 8 Norrie, Trent, or Porro out this week. So actually benching Gabriel was easy. Go for Fabianski and your shitty team over Raya felt like a pretty big call, actually. And the FPL gods found an extra point for him yesterday to take him up to 9 points. But again, actually, in seriousness, it was quite an easy decision because I had 2 Chelsea offensive.
Yeah. And you don't like to go against.
Yeah. And although they blanked this weekend, I'm pretty pleased that they're both in place. I don't have to worry about that aspect of Palmer. And I think as well, Jackson's had a couple of blanks. He's on 4 yellows. I think he's going to be a great differential for me here. Even though I know that yellow card's coming at some point, it's enough where I've got to hold on to him. Their fixtures are really good. And anyone who's got that Isak Jackson decision now is going Isak. And I'm not saying that's the wrong move, by the way, because that's the player I want as well. You wouldn't go Watkins to Jackson now, which I don't even think you go Solanke to Jackson now, do you? If people have already got Isak.
Not to Jackson, no. No.
So
Jackson's off the table, mate.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that's going to be a great differential for me moving forward. Yes, let's talk games, boss.
Good. So obviously no early kickoff, no Friday night football. We went straight into the 3:00 games. Brentford 3, Bournemouth 2, a cracker of a game, goals. And in the end, it was Visser that comes out as the hero here. It was what we thought in the end, to be honest with you. And even Thomas Frank came out and said, "Look, attack from an offensive point of view, we're good. We're going to be doing bits." Like,
it's not what he said. He said, "We're so good." It's actually what he said.
I've got Salah and Palmer, and then Mbumo's my next highest price midfielder. So should I want to get to a Saka or what have you, he's the one that's closest to it. But he's outscored Saka so far this season. I don't really see him as he's an underpriced asset. Would you agree, Mbomo? If Brentford, are going to continue to score a lot of goals.
He's not if you're buying now. He's going to go 8 million this week.
True. I'm still in my mind thinking
if
of
you bought at 7, yeah, I think
3.
he was one of the most underpriced at the start. But you're buying a Brentford midfielder 8 million now. Is that underpriced? No, that's fair price.
I think he's still going to be consistent throughout.
I don't doubt that, to be honest. But there is a big swing of fixtures from game week 14. I'd say this every week, and it will take a brave person to potentially take him on. I would maybe quite like to do that because I think he's going to sit in so many teams. It's not to say I'm selling him because he's in other people's teams, but it would be looking at fixtures and going, okay, well, those fixtures are tough over a sustained period. Let's see if we can take it on and try and go to someone else, because I think those who certainly end up with the freemium, if you will, of Palmer, Saka, if he's fit, I'm sure he probably will be. Although he did take a heavy knock, it's worth saying, at Salah and then Bumo. As I keep saying about that 4, you're going to find that very difficult to sell any of that. I'm talking about moving, like manipulating money to try and get, say, Bumo to Saka. Also, if I make that sort of move, rather than going Bumo to Bowen, I feel more justified in selling, don't I? Like,
you don't be doing Bumo to Bowen.
I've upgraded this, basically, yeah. So, although I would like to keep a player around about Bumo's value as well, because yes, Bowen, Jota, Diaz, that sort of thing. I do feel like I still want to be there. And again, once I've got Saka in, it'd be difficult to downgrade that. But then would I want to if I'm set that way? It would probably be if I have to then go into like a Boomer or a Jota back or something like that. I've probably got to cut one of my forwards, I would say. So I do prefer the structure having Boomer there, but then it would be difficult for me at any point to move Boomer to look, West Ham's got good fixtures. Like, who wants to do that right now? That's what I'm saying. It'll be a brave person who decides Boomer to Jared Bowen in game week 14. They did something quite interesting with the system at the weekend, Brentford, and it won't stick. But essentially, Keane Lewis Potter basically played left back. I think that was a deeper role for Boomer. Actually, I think if you look on the heat maps, etc., it still looks really good. He looks like the most advanced Brentford player, but it's very wide. And I think that it was kind of a little bit like this hybrid we've seen him use in away games quite a lot. With Keane Lewis Potter really deep, basically. I'm a bit concerned about that because I think there's a lot of people looking at Boomer captain game week 13. I think this would be better choice as it stands.
If you owned.
If I owned, which I'm not going to.
If you would, so, I mean, this is ownership. Let's have a look here. 7.7%. It's not nothing.
It's low. I mean, it's probably a bit more than that in the engaged community.
Twos and threes.
He's definitely one, actually, ironically, that once you hit game week 14, I think you, in a weird way, you'd be more comfortable moving him on rather than Boomer. But his numbers are great, like in terms of his returns.
So consistent.
Remember, he's missed a couple of games through injury as well. Obviously, picked out that problem at Manchester City in game week 4. So, yeah, Johan Visser, if someone wants to forward for the next couple, Everton away, Leicester at home, not going to put you off that. And if people have been without Boomer and are on wildcard, yeah, I probably would still stick him in for the next 2. But because you won't have the value held to you, I'd be thinking about moving that on from game week 14. Disastrous goal conceded with the Sepp Vandenberg pass back. He moved from left back to right back. Doesn't sound like Rico Henry's any nearer a return. Mikel Damsgaard played a more advanced role. Scored again. I say scored again because he scored a couple of cup goals. I think that might have been his first in the league. His underlying data is pretty decent this year. I wouldn't be looking at that personally at the moment. Matthias Jensen's return to the team has facilitated him essentially to play a higher position, basically as a left-sided forward with license to go central, and Keane Lewis Potter obviously to push forward from the left-back position. But if I was investing in Brentford now, it would only be Flecken and definitely not Flecken, sorry, Boomer and Visser. Defensively, I mean, even if it was Vandenberg, who's now 4.1, I'd honestly be looking at one of the other teams now because them fixtures are so rough from 14. The thing is, if you would say on wildcard and you're thinking, I want a cheapish defender, in a weird way, you can go, oh, Vandenberg, great for the next 2. But presumably on wildcard, you're not setting up to play him in the next 2. So you might as well set up for something that looks, something else looks like better for beyond that period of just a cheaper 4.0.
It's the jump now to Lewis Hall is only 0.2 or Mikalenko or something like that. It's not that big a jump to a better.
Their fixtures are turning shit as well soon, Everton.
Is Joachim Anderson still 4-3 or has he gone up now?
Yeah, he is. But I know Fulham have got Wolves next, but actually then 3 of, well, I mean, if you look at their games afterwards, Tottenham away, Brighton at home, Arsenal at home, Liverpool away.
Yeah, the home fixtures. I mean, I suppose my point is for a couple of bits more, you can get something much better if you can stretch to it. Like the difference now from 4.1 to 4.3 is quite big.
Well, Lewis Hall's 0.2 more, right?
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Just find a bit of money to get something that's going to serve you.
Don't look to me like they're going to keep a clean sheet in any football match.
No.
You've got Flecken.
Yeah.
What's the plan here?
David Raya.
Like when?
To be determined, but I think 14.
So straight after Raya's clean sheet at West Ham.
Yeah. Well, look, the thing is, the way I look at it, Everton, Leicester. I can't. Flecken, if he's going to keep clean sheets ever, is Everton at Leicester. So I've kind of kicked it forward to 14, and I'd like to roll a couple of transfers through to 14 so I can make 2 or 3 moves simultaneously to get Raya in. Who wants to make a goalkeeper transfer in any given week? But if I do it as part of a 3-way move, I feel a little bit more comfortable.
How many clean sheets do you think Arsenal get from the next 2?
It's a good point. They got
Forest at home and West Ham away.
definitely one. Definitely
Okay.
one.
How would you think Brentford keep from Everton away, Leicester at home?
Yeah. Listen, this is the Mark Flecken that only literally 7 days ago was on for a 12-pointer, bar 3 minutes. So let's not panic.
Sorry, let me just reach under the table for the violin, Princess.
No, I'm just saying, let's not panic, right? I'm not bothered. This is not panic. I don't mind, but
No, it's not panic. It's the goalkeeper position anyway.
yeah,
And
just
the
don't worry
irony
about
is,
it.
with
I haven't had
some
a
of these
clean
tougher
sheet all
fixtures,
season, and I'm still in the top millions. It's all right.
with some of these tougher fixtures, the irony is they probably will go a bit more defensive like they did at Fulham on Monday night. And you could look at one of them hauls, don't get me wrong. Villa away in full team. Villa may well rotate their team quite a bit. Who knows? But yeah, he wouldn't be going in now on wild card, would he, Flecken?
No chance.
I think Semenyo you'd still be very tempted by. Fixture's good. He is on 4 yellows. That's definitely the offensive one still to look at, though. But I would have a consciousness with Semenyo at the moment. I'm looking at it and going, I've got Aït-Nouri on 4 yellows. I've got Jackson on 4 yellows. If I went, because I could look at Garnacho to Semenyo and it's really tempting. But if all 3 of them all got booked on the same weekend, it's like, I'm almost looking for one of the others to get booked first.
Yes.
Then I can invest in Semenyo, basically. So he's on radar. Evan Nilsson scored. But I would prefer, Tom Med, who keeps putting me off Johan Visser and did again on Clash of Correspondence last week. Don't listen to what Tom says about Johan Visser. I'd still pump Visser for the next 2 before I was going to Evan Nilsson, despite Evan Nilsson's fixtures looking good over the really long term. I really think Visser is now a captaincy candidate in Gameweek 13. And I'm a bit colder on the idea of Captain Boomer in that week, ironically as well. I'm a bit concerned at that little tweak at the weekend that he's going to end up quite a bit wider. For Bournemouth, just as an overall, lost at Brentford, lost at Leicester, with the 3 games in the middle, with the 7 points from those 3 really good fixtures. So they're still a little bit behind in terms of trying to put the consistency together. They're a really good side. We should treat them as,
they should have beat Leicester. So as much as they did lose, they should have won. I was looking back at even West Ham's fixtures this season and where you and I talked about it on Tottenham, where we'd scraped through last minute. Even the cup game against Bournemouth, where we beat them in the Carabao, they should have beat us that night as well. So they're always in it. They always seem to be in it.
Yeah. They're a good side and improving, and the fixtures are really good moving forward now, basically till game week 20. That's a solid kind of 8-9 game weeks coming up for them. But Semenyo's still the one I'd want to go to. For me personally, with the 4 yellows at the moment, I feel like I can't, and I've got other little fires to put out. But on the face of it, I know Garnacho's outscored him this week. That's a very tempting move, isn't it? Garnacho to Semenyo now.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
So, but it's not going to work for me at this moment in time. Defensively, you could have a look. Kepa went back in goal.
That's Kirkes maybe.
That's one that wildcarders might look at. I think, of the back 4, as kind of discussed with Neil Grove on COTC last week, I'd probably chase Kirkes at 4.4. I mean, that's pretty reasonable as a get at this stage. So, I think there's a few different ones might end up in wildcard teams now. I guess Evan Nilsson for wildcarders is interesting as well. It wouldn't be for me. I think on wildcard, Semenyo would go in. I think.
Crystal Palace 0, Fulham 2. When you have attacking issues and injuries, is the solution just to play every defender that you have? Munoz, Chalobah, Lacroix, Gahey, Klein, Mitchell. Is it 6 at the back? Sod it. We've got no forwards. Let's just pack it. And now that Kamada's going to be suspended, who else have they got on the bench that they can just chuck into defence as well? Let's try a new system. Obviously, that's not how they played. But yeah, not good from a Palace point of view, particularly now looking at Kamada's got himself sent off, that they just don't have the bodies in attack to even consider. Like it's for them right now. Fulham, on the other hand, though, apart from Bernd Leno, he can fuck off because he couldn't keep any clean sheets, and now he's getting 9 pointers. The rest of them are decent. The interesting question is what happens now with Harry Wilson? Like, you can't just keep coming off and scoring goals. He's going to get himself into the team,
I
surely.
told you in mid-October that Harry Wilson was a great option.
Just a year too early.
A year too early, admittedly. But yeah, no, I don't think he does. Actually, I think for Harry Wilson to play regularly at the moment, how Fulham are playing, I think he'd go in the team for Smith Rowe. And I don't want people to like have fear on that because Smith Rowe's not coming out of the team.
No, I was thinking the same. Like when he came off the bench, he came off on for Reece Nelson.
Yeah, but it's also a stage of a game as well where we're 1-0 up against 10 men.
Mm.
I don't think there's enough trust in him defensively. And I don't think there's huge trust in Smith Rowe defensively, right? Pereira plays this hybrid role where off the ball he sits back in with the single pivot, which has been Sanderberg recently, who's done fine. Obviously, Sasa Lukic might be back after the break as well. So Smith Rowe owners shouldn't be concerned about that. I just think the profile of those wide players, Nelson, Iwobi, and Adama Traore, obviously, even you would argue is still ahead in the pecking order as well, are all decent ball carriers. Like Harry Wilson is not quite that. He can do it, but not with the speed of obviously the others. What he does have is obviously a very good creative eye. But I think in the likes of Smith Rowe and Pereira kind of in the half spaces, they don't need it so much.
No.
So I think it will continue as him being an impact substitute going forward. So
you don't have any Fulham, do you?
And I'm not really bothered about that either because yes, it's Wolves at home next, but as said, the fixtures afterwards till New Year are not great. So if you look beyond Wolves, it's Tottenham away, Brighton at home, Arsenal at home, Liverpool away. Okay, then there's Southampton at home, but then it's Chelsea away. Then there's a good run of fixtures that starts. And I'll come back and I'll have another look again at Fulham around about the Christmas period. It's worth saying Emil Smith-Rowe continues to provide exceptional value. I know you've sold him, and I get it. It was part of a move to bring Mo in, right?
Salah.
So, yeah. So,
I always look at it and I'm like, would I have liked to keep him? Sure.
Yeah.
But I got Salah.
We forgive it. But for those who still weren't, he's ticking over great. I think he's got the most points of the players in and around that value. But he's also had, if you look at, say, Smith Rowe versus Semenyo, I wouldn't suddenly be going now, I'm going to go Smith Rowe over Semenyo. Like, even with Semenyo and 4 yellows, if I'm on wildcard, I'm going Semenyo because of the fixtures coming up. You can say, it's still Wolves this week for Smith Rowe. Yeah, so Semenyo's got Brighton at home and then good fixtures after that as well. So I understand it. It does feel like it's been a regular one, though, where people, particularly on my deadline streams, shall I sell him? Shall I sell him? No one ever asked me about buying him. And he's ticking over really good.
Yep.
He's doing really well, Emil Smith-Rowe. Raul Jimenez ticking over fine as well. Obviously, assist a goal. Honestly, if you've got any Fulham going into this week, this is not a concern in terms of sell-off. It's Wolves at home. You have a think about that afterwards, right? So I think if you all say Raul Jimenez and you're spooked by João Pedro, I honestly think you're looking at making that move in game week 13 rather than doing it this week. Surely you can wait the extra week. And I think that would be the same with the Fulham assets. But the one that's on my eye the most is one you mentioned earlier, Joachim Anderson for the long term.
Yep. Just as a set and forget, kind of rotate him in and out. When
kind of like ideal first defender option further down the line. And if I go and attack something like, let's say I do go, say, Lewis Hall or Colwill now, obviously there's a period where Ray and Eight Norrie's fixtures further down the line are going to get worse. I can see me going 8 Norrie to Anderson around about game week 19, 20 when Wolves' fixtures get really bad. And then using Anderson to rotate with like a Colwell and Hall or something like that. I can foresee that. For Palace, Mark Gay played in midfield. You know that, right?
Mm.
Glasner did that in game week 38 last year as well, which was Mark Gay's only appearance for Palace under Glasner before the Euros. Also played a young lad, Justin Devaney, who I've got to be really honest, until I saw the lineup on Saturday, I'd never heard of. It sounds like he did okay, but clearly Palace are in a situation of problems at the moment. They have suffered a few hamstring injuries recently. Lerma, Eze, and Ketcher, all hamstring injuries. They're quite a thin squad. I think you look at them and you think, if everyone's available, decent team, and trust them to get out of trouble. That team that they played on the pitch at the weekend would struggle to stay up.
The fixtures till Christmas, James, are horrible. I'm not gonna lie, like Villa, the away fixtures. When you think about Villa, but it's away. Then Newcastle at home. Newcastle are gathering a bit of momentum now. Ipswich away. Ipswich will be looking to target that, and you've seen what they can do. Man City, Brighton, which is away. Arsenal at home. Bournemouth away. Like you could see them getting to game week 18 and picking up 2, 3, 4 points in all of that, because those are some horrible fixtures all the way up to Boxing Day.
Key point for the Villa game in 12, because you, as a Watkins owner at the moment, you look at that and attack that, and that's not to put anybody off. But I'm pretty sure that Mark Gay will go back in at centre back. Decore will come into the team, who's a good player, go in midfield, and either Devaney will play again, or they'll put something experienced in that area like Jeffrey Schlupp if they don't have any of the others back available. They're light. Kamada's going to have a 3-game suspension now. He doesn't sound like Eze will be back for 12. Pretty sure Nketiah won't be back. So you're looking at maybe even them shifting the system a little bit, maybe even going 3-5-2, just playing Sarr and Mateta up front. And it's worth saying, Mateta's XG was big at the weekend. It was just under 1. He's missed some decent chances within that game. Fulham clean sheet, Suj. That's the second one you've missed now, isn't it? Since selling Leno, I think.
Yes. Nothing more to add. Yes.
Just get Flappy in. Go and get Flappy in game week 14, mate. Come on, you know you want to.
Right, is that a segue into West Ham 0, Everton 0? What a game.
I hadn't intended to do that, but now we're here, yeah.
Yeah, let's do it. 0-0, I mean, it is what it says on the tin. I think I defer to FPL fella Dan, who was actually at the game. This is the worst game of football I've ever seen, I think he tweeted. And in addition, he said he'd rather have gone to the aqua park on the Olympic Park to watch Praz do his 5K swim. Well done, Praz, on doing that, rather than watch this game. I tell you what, in the first 25, 30 minutes, I wouldn't say I was impressed by Everton. Everton definitely came to make the game physical, and they showed way more desire. And they had a number of chances where they broke through with runners in behind. Decore on 2 occasions getting in. They looked like they were going to try and muscle their way to a win and take the fight to West Ham. And I thought that midfield of Mangala, Garner, Decore, if it's got something, it's got physicality, right? And we are quite light in that area. And I was worried. I thought Everton definitely showed the more desire to want to win the game. The problem they've got, James, is quality. I think had Dwight McNeil been playing, I actually think Everton could have possibly won, because they'd have that little bit of quality for the timing of the final pass or something like that. Is it Lindstrom on the right?
Yeah.
He's all right, but just that little bit of quality lacking in certain areas. Having said that, Pickford pulled out the save of the game at the end, right? And
yeah, the Danny Ings deflected one.
Yeah, and so you're kind of thinking, there's talk of what Sullivan said after the game, like, yeah, we were not good and we're going to keep Lopetegui and whatever. We were just unlucky at the end. You can't just say we were unlucky at the end because of one shot that Pickford pulls out a save. We don't do enough to warrant scoring goals. It's just there's no goal threat there at the moment. No consistent goal threat. Defensively, still leaky. No structure. West Ham are in a bad way at the moment. The problem I have for West Ham, like say City are in a bad way right now, right? But I know Pep will find a way to regroup and restructure and reorganize for when you guys go there in a few weeks' time. I don't think we have a way of, I don't know what we will do to restructure to be able to cope with Isak at St. James's Park. I just don't know how we'll stop him right now. Put 3 at the back? Will we try that against Chris Wood? This is the problem. I don't know what the solution is to the lack of defensive stability and also lack of goal threat for West Ham at the moment. It's a hard avoid, and we're just biding time now till Lopetegui parts company, to be honest with you, in my opinion. And Everton, yeah.
Is there any chance we finish recording this podcast and Lopetegui gets sacked? just
No,
after we finish. You know, that
no,
sort of thing does tend to
no,
happen to people.
no, no,
No,
no.
they're sticking, are they?
Based on the comments at the weekend,
What
no.
comments?
Sullivan's comments.
Okay.
Yeah, he's just come out like, supportive comments.
It's not going to come out and say like, oh, if he doesn't win today, he's
No, but they
sacked.
could
So,
come out and say nothing, but they didn't. They did come out and say we've had meetings and they were positive. Lopetegui had a meeting with Karen Brady last Friday and it was positive, and they know that we're not doing what we need to do or getting the results we want to. It's still a few games away at least, in my opinion, James.
okay.
I wouldn't touch Everton
Lots of
either.
negative Everton discourse after the weekend as well. Um, I think it depends which side of the room you're on, right? Because they are, I mean, it's 2 losses in 9 or something, but it's 1 win in 8 or something. Like, it depends how you view it. There's obviously a lot of draws over this period. 2 really important home games for them coming up over the next couple: Brentford at home and Wolves at home, because their run of fixtures.
Outside of that is awful.
Yeah. And I think like if you've got an Everton asset, this week is fine. The home to Brentford, particularly the offensive ones, obviously. Then I think you are looking to move that on without question for me. Sure, a defensive one, if you've got an enabling one, maybe like Mikalenko, you bench at United 13, Wolves at home 14. You ain't picking Mikalenko any fixtures after that. And it's not to say he has to be sold because he could sit on your bench. I'm just saying you ain't picking him for many afterwards. Although we'll flag up FPL Phenom's message that he tweeted last night, because he showed Everton's fixtures from 15 onwards, and I'll read them out for you. It's Liverpool at home, it's Arsenal away, Chelsea at home, Manchester City away, Nottingham Forest at home, Bournemouth away, Aston Villa at home, and God knows why he left Tottenham at home in game week 22 in there as the final part of it. Might as well just cut that off. Because if you can see it now, can't you? Everton are winless in 7. Here comes Dr. Tottenham.
Yeah. I just think they don't have the goal threat. It's a problem for them. They need to find. We're both in similar boats. The only thing I would say with Everton versus West Ham is they are more likely to be able to grind out a 0-0 against one of these teams than we are. You can see him defensively grinding out and being stubborn, whereas you can't see West Ham doing it. So,
and also the one important, I guess, Everton takeaway from many people at the weekends. Obviously, Braithwaite came back in for Michael Keane.
Yeah, and he did well as well.
Yeah, and they've kept a clean sheet. That's not going to go back
he did
now.
Well.
So if you're a Michael Keane owner, it's fine. This was inevitable that it was going to happen. Is it inevitable that at some point Areola will come back in for Flappy, or is this it now? Is he number 1?
I wouldn't say inevitable. Flappy's like 300 years old or something.
He'll get injured at some point, won't he?
But at the moment, it's sticking for a while. Yeah, it's going to stick for a little while. And even he pulled out a couple of half decent saves as well. So, yeah.
He's chewing for people on wildcard, isn't he?
Oh, yeah. 4 million all day long. There's no other 4 million keeper that's even worth considering.
No, I don't know how people wouldn't pick him at the moment.
Yep.
He'll go up in value over this period and then just sit here, but obviously don't pick him as your first choice goalkeeper. I wouldn't do what Clates did a few weeks ago and go to 2 of them.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, James, what he was thinking then.
Well, I think he was thinking there's good fixtures between 14 and 18, but it's shit now and it's shit afterwards. So there's like a short-term period where it's okay.
And also, like, he didn't ask me before he did it. He didn't say, "What's West Ham like defensively? Would you recommend this?" I would have told him quite clearly.
As if you'd have said yes.
Yeah, I mean, he's got me on tap to ask. He didn't.
It's worth saying Clayton had a very good week in FPL.
Did he?
Really. He was in the 70s, I think. He had a really good week.
There was a point yesterday where I was going to ask him to cover me because I was feeling pretty rough, and then I decided not to. I should have now, considering how he did well, because I feel like as a content creator, you need to come on even when you have a bad week. Not that was the reason I wouldn't want to come on. I felt like having a bad week, you need to show up as well. That's good for him though. 2 good weeks off the back of wildcard. Go on, Clates. Let's talk about Wolves 2, Southampton 0, shall we? Or were you going to say something else there?
No. Who wants to say anything more about West Ham or Everton?
No one. No one. Let's do it. Wolves 2, Southampton 0. Both of us were wrong, James. It was Cunha was the one to go to.
No, I've been very clear saying to everybody, pay the extra for Cunha over Larson. It's just it didn't work for me. Huge regret for me in when I bought 8 Nori, that cut off early in the week, and I bought him at 4.4, and he's flying up in value like big whoop, and he got me a return this weekend. Had I not done it, I would have bought Cunha and Salah at that point.
I was going to buy Cunha and Salah the week before, and I think over the 2 weeks, this cost me best part of 25 to 30 points.
Yeah. And Ugh. Larson now, he's on the chopping block for me already. That's because of something I saw over the weekend. You can probably already all guess who that is. Yeah, but you said James. Listen, we'll get on to it. So look, for me, it was Cunha was off the table for me. It just didn't work financially. Didn't have the money to do it. So Larson to go in for this period, knowing that I could take him forward and rotate him with Rodgers, for example, I thought was kind of fine. And if I get stuck with that, I also think it's fine because the fixtures are really good for a while, right? And maybe they'll go on a little run now. But the game kind of went down the route very much how I thought it would, despite the fact Southampton didn't win. They had 70% of the ball. It's the same with them every week. You just don't really create the chances. That said, it doesn't help when they do create a good chance and it scores and it gets cancelled for dodgy VAR decision. Yeah, and I know Wolves fans will be screaming, yeah, but James, we've had it so bad for so long. Well,
yeah,
you had this one go in your favour. Well done.
I don't know what it was disallowed for. Were they saying that there was a foul?
They disallowed it because that was it. Fernandez tried to make the challenge. Too many Fernandezes in this league. Tried to make the challenge to get to the ball, and Semedo stepped across him. And there's one angle where it does look like Fernandez comes through the back of Semedo's calf, but it's Semedo's so minimal. And Semedo initiates the contact.
It was a judo throw. The body shape of Semedo.
That shouldn't get called out. On the Cunha goal, which is obviously a brilliant finish, Southampton want 2 fouls in the build-up for that. I will refer to exactly what I said to Clayton on this podcast last week about Ipswich not getting a penalty against Leicester.
No hands, no feet. No hands, no legs.
No feet. You can do what you want. Yeah. And that's wrong. But what I'm saying is from a consistency level in the Premier League, that's why it's not getting given. Because that's what's happening. And that's also wrong, by the way, but that's what's happened with officiating at the moment. Most players are cutting on clever. There's a good chance if I come through the back of you and don't use hands or feet, I'm going to get away with it. And it happens twice on that goal for Wolves, which is brilliantly finished from Cunha, who's a great asset. And he certainly, as a longer-term hold, will feel way more comfortable than Larson. Also, what's at Cunha's value? It's Chris Wood coming into Arsenal away this week.
Tough fixtures.
Larson, there's a couple of other ones potentially more to obviously have a look at. And his XG was low at the weekend, Larson as well. So it was worth saying second lowest, I think, at the season. It will do fine, by the way. If I end up sticking with him, it's not a huge problem.
Fine. Like next week against Fulham away when I've benched him.
Probably. Yeah,
I feel like that's how I feel about Larson right now. I feel like he's going to do all right when I bench him because I know I'm going to bench him in a few games.
On 8-Nori, because I didn't speak about him much last week, but it has been clear, obviously, from these last couple of games and was beforehand anyway, that he does get into some absolutely wild positions because even though he is playing left wing back, he is not restricted to having to stay on the left-hand side. Wolves also move into a hybrid system basically within possession where Toti Gomez basically becomes the left back and he can go where he wants. Cunha quite often has a lean to play towards that side as well, but also isn't restricted out there. He can go. There are so many examples recently on the eye test where you can see 8-Nori ends up where. In fact, you only have to look at Sarabia's goal at the weekend. 8-Nori is busting to get into the box. But he doesn't, for me, have any composure in front of goal in the big moment. I know he's scored a few goals this year. And also, great, I've got my 6-pointer this week. And I could have had an assist, by the way, because Bellegarde should have put one away towards the end of the game. But they ain't going to keep many cleans. I don't think. They're so ropey defensively. I think they were there for the taking at the weekend. It's pretty disappointing from Southampton, actually. Although I get they're a bit unfortunate with some of the decisions. The time to buy Wolves was last week. Because of that, because they're playing Southampton. I don't think Fulham away now is the time to chase it. I'd more be thinking, could I take a punt on one or two of their players 16, 17 when they play like Ipswich? They don't get a result against anybody. And then Leicester, they don't get a result against anybody. But yeah, that's 5 points I can't get back this season. Such anyway, I probably wouldn't be diving into that now. I get that Nori and Cunha will both probably appeal for wildcarders. I guess if you've had Wood and you wanted to stay at that structure, you'd go Cunha now if he was on wildcard, wouldn't you? Go Cunha over Wood.
Yeah, or I mean,
you would.
If you wanted to stay at that structure of that 6.5 million, I guess yes. But there's so many players that at the 5.5 million that might be interesting. Segue, the return of João Pedro, Brighton 2.
We're not talking about Southampton
Man
assets.
City 1. 12 games in, 1 win, 1 draw. If there were FPL points for possession,
they'd be doing quite well, yeah.
Well, if you got, if possession was a good thing, they'd have a bag of weed on them.
Look at what's next as well. Liverpool own Brighton away, Chelsea own Villa away, and then they'll get a result in game week 16, I should imagine.
PTSD for James here today.
I'll be at St Mary's late on a Sunday night. Like, what could go wrong?
I'm not. Yeah, I mean, it's one for Tottenham this week, or Tottenham, whichever it is. The oxymoron that is Tottenham Hotspur. But let's talk about Brighton 2, Man City 1.
Because I can't have a pop at people calling me Spursy, can I?
No, you can't. But then if Man City go to Brighton and do what you did, then it can't be that bad. It must be Brighton are really good, right? This must have meant this fixture must have made you think, at least it's not just us. Because to go 1-0 up and dominate the first half and then Brighton to come back. I mean, and you can't say that Brighton didn't deserve it by the end of the game. Right? In the second half, they were all over it.
They have like 8 big chances by the end, Brighton.
Monster.
It's incredible.
And even, the save from Ederson of Hinchelwood's header and stuff. I mean, yeah. And Pedro come straight back in and obviously has a massive impact. Means that people are going to have all eyes on him as well.
Okay. Yeah.
Is he down to 5-3 now?
5-4. Let's do Brighton first. So, yeah, João Pedro, I would imagine, is going in nearly every wild card. And I think he'll be very tempting to everybody this week as well.
Good run as well, Brighton now.
Yeah. I mean, the top of my ticker over the next 5. And I would say they're pretty good up to game week 18. So the next 7 are really good, actually. Then there's a few tougher fixtures after that, but even then afterwards, there's some good ones. And to be honest, at João Pedro's price, it's not like you can't bench him if you're worried about, Arsenal at home in game week 20 and stuff like that. Villa away 19 is not huge fear. So it's only probably Arsenal game week 20 looking up for quite a while, looking sort of up to like game week 24, and so it's good. For me, I've been telling people every week, just sell him for God's sakes, right? How many games has he missed, Suj, João Pedro?
Plenty, about 6.
And the point has always been with me, it's not like we don't look at like Wood and Visser and Cunha and Larson and other players at this value, like kicking it off. Those who have held all this time are now sitting there laughing. You've missed a lot in the meantime, by the way, but you're in a great position because everyone wants that player. He came on that pitch, Suj, and I can only describe it to you as aura.
Yep.
He had an aura about him as soon as he got
I'm
going to
win this game. Yep.
Now, if he's like that against Man City, yes, please. We have the backup security of what Hertzler had said in the past before he got injured, of him kind of basically being his key player. Here's the big caveat for you. They have so many cooks and so many options that there's no way that he's starting all these games like over Christmas and stuff like that. He's going to get rotated. But there is huge potential there. There is huge potential because him as a footballer is very good. He's also on penalties.
I was going to say, James, he's on the old pens. Everyone loves a pen taker, don't they?
And the biggest thing about him versus a lot of players at the same value in and around, he plays for a very good football team. They're good.
Yep.
I will always be consistent and say that about Brighton. For me, they're the best outside the expected top 8 with every chance of breaking through that. They are the most likely to push through that despite whatever the league. I don't even know where they are in the league table. I've tried not to look at it.
They're 5th or 6th, mate, to be honest with you.
Well, it doesn't
it's only 6th, and it's only Forest ahead of them, like who are not part of the traditional big clubs. And I think Brighton will be more consistent over the full season. Like you'll see Brighton are more likely to finish top 5 than Forest, just because they're more likely to be more consistent over the entire 38 games.
I don't
They're
know.
on the same points.
You'd make the case that Forest defensively are stronger than Brighton, but I mean, if you compare the two teams' fixtures, I mean, this is I saw people buying Wood this way, and I'm sorry, I don't understand it.
I mean, he had
Now,
a couple of chances.
no, I know he did, but it's like you're walking into this. I've watched all these returns against all these shit, and now he's playing all these difficult games coming up. Unless people want to captain him in game week 13, if that's the plan, fine. But if you're looking at Wood now, away to Arsenal, surely you're looking at João Pedro and going, oh.
Yep.
By the way, João Pedro's fixture this week is not easy. It's Bournemouth away. Good side.
I say it's not easy, but it's one of those where, from an attacking point of view, you know they'll get chances and score goals. It'll be another. You'd expect you wouldn't surprise you if it's another similar game to the Brentford
I don't know.
game.
Like
2-1, 3-2.
Bournemouth have had tough home games and done very well. Right? They were the better side, in my opinion, when they lost to Chelsea. They should have beat Newcastle, got kind of robbed with a late VAR decision. To beat Arsenal, to beat Man City, no, it's not easy. So for me, I've obviously got problems to deal with, right? 13, Larson plays Bournemouth. It's not a bad fixture, but who's Brighton playing?
Tell me.
Southampton at home. Yes, please.
Yeah, I'd take João Pedro. Yeah, no doubt about it.
If I wouldn't say regret. I don't regret buying Larson, but I bought Larson to play Southampton. Point is, I'd probably be buying João Pedro to go and play Southampton as well. If he'd have been back a week earlier and put on that substitute performance against City that he'd put on against Liverpool, I'd have been putting him in. I imagine he will come into that team for the Bournemouth game. He was fantastic when he came on, and they were collectively as a team. Mitoma, I think, is the only real midfield option to really consider. But it is.
Don't forget Ruter's a midfielder, but I think Ruter's the one who's going to lose his place, isn't he, to Pedro?
I think so. Could be. He could play on the right. They're very offensive with kind of the front four, but there's a lot of availability, isn't it? Adingra played this one.
Yep.
Minter's still unavailable. Solly March can come back, and that is the problem. You have to know this with João Pedro. He's not going to start and play every single game, but I do think he's first choice. This feels way more secure to me now with him than it felt at any point last season. And I know there was a lot of fuss around him last season as well. But last season, it really did feel like I have no idea if he's going to play or not. But if he is, I really want him. Yeah, I cannot believe anyone would wildcard and not put him in at the moment after that substitute appearance. Defensively, they're worth looking at as well. And I think wildcarders will. Again, good sustained run of fixtures. I think Verbruggen now will come to the table as a very interesting option. I like Van Heck. I think
you've been saying that for about 2 or 3 weeks now, that Verbruggen will be the wild carders keeper of choice.
Well, now you've got Liverpool Man City games out of the way. It's like, yeah, it's opened up, isn't it? I think Arsenal obviously haven't had many clean sheets recently, so that will put enough. There will be people still go with Raya, but I think if you're going into that 4.5-ish level now, it's Verbruggen or Sanchez.
Yeah, Sanchez is a good option as well.
And I just think with Brighton, like, you've got Kadioglu who's not played at the weekend. Minor problem. But again, there's loads of cooks in terms of Istupanan, Kadioglu, Veltman. Solly March, even once he's back, could even end up playing in a fullback position. You've got Tariq Lamptey. Centre-back, first choice pairing will be Van Heck and Dunk. Julio's done quite well recently. Dunk's obviously been unavailable. I'm near certain that Dunk would come back in for Julio when he's available. The safest one to go to is Van Heck. It's a bit dull. So I think you look up for Verbruggen.
Yeah, agreed.
Excellent victory for them. Really good side. Great fixtures coming up. Wouldn't be surprised if we walk into the new year and they're fourth. I don't think they'll finish in the top four, but it honestly wouldn't surprise me. I think they'll do really well over this period. City, we're going to do another piece on them and talking tactics this week. This is really, really simple, and this is really, really basic. And me and Clayton spoke about this on Friday about what I would want to do with them, which is put Bernardo Silva in central midfield with Kovacic to give it a little bit more protection. The fullback problem with that is that you can't put pressure on at the top end of the pitch in the way you want. If De Bruyne will obviously eventually come back in the team, because him and Haaland are fine, but Pep doesn't want to play them as a front two because the pressure on the ball just isn't as good, because they can't go and press in the way that De Bruyne used to 10 years ago, or Haaland just can't or /won't. I don't care who you are. If you play a high line and don't put pressure on the ball, you're in so much trouble.
I was so surprised with how much space there was behind the defensive line for City, for Brighton to run into.
That's fine. You play a high line. A lot of the top teams play a high line, right? If you're going to put pressure on the ball, we're talking about from the centre-back position. And then into midfield. Look at the goals. It's so bad. Now, give City a little bit of mitigating in the sense of they've obviously had a young lad play. Marge Pawn has played centre-back with Vardiol, who we've hardly seen play centre-back for City. Lewis, over old ground, left back, right back, doesn't matter. People will target him. Cole Walker's
Marge
Pawn for a
Pawn.
long time. Yeah, Marge Pawn.
Simpson Poozy. Oh, okay.
I had to get the joke out at some point, right? Young lad did fine, by the way. He looks a decent player, but they're missing. And this is to give it mitigating. No Diaz, no Stones, no Akanji, no Aki, right? So guess what? They'd all play against Tottenham, right? But that was way too weak defensively. And when Brighton equalised, you knew it was coming. Mm-hmm. You didn't think, City will respond. It's like they're going to get beat here.
Yeah, XG was 2.23 for City, 2.22 for City, 2.23 for Brighton. But Brighton did have 8 big chances to City's 5. And obviously, Haaland's goal, by the fact that he's directly in front of goal when he taps it in, must have an XG of basically 1 as well.
They're in trouble. They can't fix the problem for me. There are things you can do to fix basics, like putting pressure on the ball if you're going to play a high line at the same time. I don't believe City are going to become a low block team. I don't think they can, right? So there's still going to be a team that plays high. There are fixes to putting pressure on the ball. There are not fixes in that squad at the moment to manipulation of good players in central areas because their best player is unavailable. He is going to be unavailable every week. There is no fix for this at the moment. So I'll tell you truthfully, we've joked about Tottenham a lot on this podcast. I would not be surprised if we go there and beat them.
Yeah, it's why I'm holding Porro and Solanke. There's just something inside me that's like the pace, the way that you'll get at them, and you'll concede. There's no doubt about it.
It's more likely we get beat about 5-2, by the way. But
if you're going to win, you're going to win like 4-2. It's going to be goals. I think it's going to be a basketball game over a football game, and it's going to be interesting to see who is most likely to be able to keep control of the midfield area.
They have to get their press right against us. When they played us in the FA Cup in January, Pep put on an absolute masterclass of a defensive high press. We couldn't get out of our half. Key thing in that game, Haaland didn't play. Neither did De Bruyne. I'm not suggesting that Haaland's going to get dropped, by the way. No way at all. But that outstanding performance they put on that night, they cannot press in the same way with Haaland playing. He is part of a negative for them. He is incredible. He's the best number 9 in the world at what he does. But there is a negative aspect. And it's a round circle, isn't it? Oh, City a better team without Haaland. Well, no, because you can't replace those goals. But there is aspects of the team that does fail, not because of him, but he is a part of it. And their structure in terms of how aggressive they can be will be better if he's not in the team. They're not going to take him out. So this is a stupid argument.
So interesting, because you could literally replace the word Manchester City with Spurs and replace the word Haaland with Kane. And you're having the same point 2 years ago where Kane was not good for Spurs because of the style you wanted to play, but also you're not going to take him out of the team.
Of course.
And you can't replace his goals. It's very interesting that 2 of probably the best goal scorers of the last 15 years.
You wouldn't take him out. You'd be madness to play without him, right?
They both have the same negative impact on their team. To keep it moving, James, you said that should Arsenal lose, you would go today to the bookies and place a bet on them to win the league. They drew. They're 4-1 on Liverpool.
4-1 against.
4-1 against, sorry. 13-10 for Liverpool, who have cruised through 2-0. The thing with Liverpool versus City and Arsenal right now is that there's just no drama around. They're just quietly getting on with their business, but there's no drama. Whereas with Arsenal, with the injuries and the red cards and this, that, and the other, with City and everything going on, there seems to be a lot more off the field stuff. Whereas Liverpool just keep playing games and keep winning games. And yeah, I think there's something ominous about what they're doing now that makes me want to put money on them to win the league, not on any of the others, James.
I've not been to bookies yet. I've not had a chance, Suj. But the Arsenal didn't get beat, so I'm probably not going to bother. It's also, to be honest, is watching Liverpool and City at the weekend again. And thinking, yeah, Liverpool beat City in 13.
Yeah, Liverpool are good, man, and Mo Salah is just dominant at the moment. I would love to have if there was a little bit more consistency around who would play a lot, and as one of the other two attackers, double Liverpool attack would be nice. Konate is a strong consideration. I think his price at 5.3, he's a really good asset to consider as well.
Can you just go back and say one more thing on Haaland?
Go on.
He's the best captain in Gameweek 12.
I don't agree with that, but I also wouldn't come back to you and say who I do think is the best captain.
So, you think it's Mo Salah?
Oh, well, I will be captain in Mo Salah, more likely. Southampton
so will
away,
I.
come on, yeah.
I mean, yeah. As part of getting him in was not having 2 weeks. Oh, you got him in, you didn't captain. Yeah. I didn't want to sit here for 2 weeks knowing, oh my God. And obviously someone who'd been taking Haaland on. So yeah, I'll be Mo captain for me in Gameweek 12 as long as he's fit. It would be Mo over Palmer.
Am I right in thinking Mo's not going away with Egypt, or Egypt don't have any football this international break?
I've no idea.
I wrong? I'm going to just Google. I feel like I heard that Mo has a rest for 2 weeks.
If he does, great.
Yeah.
Only supports the narrative. I'm pretty sure there will be a lot of international withdrawals this week for many nations. Oh, no, some of them obviously legit for clarity. Yeah, if he's not playing, great.
1 day ago, James, Mo Salah left out of the Egypt squad in a further boost for Liverpool.
Okay.
Yeah, he's not been called up. He's obviously clearly not good enough for that Egypt team. So, yeah, fair play. So you've got Mo Salah having had a break for 2 weeks coming into... And they play... I'm sure they play on the Sunday against Southampton as well, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
so they do. Another day's rest.
It's worth noting it is the Sunday, but then it's Real Madrid on the Wednesday. It's obviously a big game. Then it's Man City on the Sunday. Then it's Newcastle Wednesday. Then it's Everton Saturday lunchtime.
He'll play, get the job done, and give him a rest. It's all good. Just saying, Salah's got a 2 week break, mate. Liverpool purring.
Oh, no, there's no concern, I don't think, for the Southampton game. There might be for one of the ones afterwards.
Okay.
He's obviously going to start Madrid and City, isn't he? There's a chance, all I'd say is there's a chance that he doesn't start one of the Newcastle or the Everton games. It's just a close proximity of the games. I would suspect, ironically, the most likely one for him not to start is probably Everton.
Yep.
Where he'll obviously look like a captainable option, it's worth saying. You, sir, who will probably have Ollie Watkins at that point, will hope that Ollie Watkins is benched in game week 14 so you can comfortably captain him in game week 15, because otherwise Watkins is probably getting a break around about that point as well. For Liverpool, number of players on radars. So what I'd say on Trent, there's no clarity yet, but he pulled up. He felt his hamstring. He felt his hamstring in a very similar way to actually what Richarlison did, assisting Solanke last weekend. And Richarlison is out for a significant period, which I'm going to guess is probably going to be into 2025. I think that might be the same here for Trent. We haven't got confirmation yet. Now, if he's out for that long of a period, we are looking at a sort of an 8-game week period where Conor Bradley is on radar, right? 4.7.
So if he's not back till 2025, he could have signed his Real Madrid contract before he plays another Liverpool game.
Oh my God.
Have I just lost us a load of Liverpool listeners?
Or mate, I told you before about pissing Liverpool fans off. Don't do that. They're the best team in the league at the moment. I'll go one better for you, Suj. He might not play for Liverpool again.
Oof. Wow.
What happens if Real Madrid
we say tongue in cheek, but it's no joke. It's no joke. Yeah.
Listen, I hope that obviously that's not a significant injury to Trent. But what I'm partly saying is, for me as an owner, there is no doubt here on selling. He was probably going to go for me anyway in terms of shoving the funds around. So, I mean, I obviously didn't want to sell him before Southampton. That's now what it's going to be. I'd be amazed if he, with a hamstring problem, if he plays in that particular fixture. Couple of weeks afterwards, yeah, sure, maybe. I guess for Man City, I've never seen anyone pull their hamstring like that and be back in like 3 weeks.
No.
So Man City is kind of like your best case scenario. I'd be selling. Connor Bradley might just be the answer, right?
Really?
Well, let's just say Trent's out 2-3 months. You must be interested, surely.
I mean, from what I saw and even the reports, his performance was shaky. No chance Joe Gomez slots in at right back, maybe.
Of course there is.
Yeah, I think if it was me and I was going to buy a Liverpool defender, I actually just think I would go Konate rather than try and cheap out at Connor Bradley's level. Doesn't really interest me, James. It's 4.7. I'd find the money for Konate.
Yeah, my take on Liverpool at the moment is because I've got this Trent problem, I've probably got to stick with Porro for a bit, right? Now, I don't want to play Porro at City this weekend. As said, if I'm short of Isak, I've got the excuse to take the hit to get rid of Trent. Then I don't have to play Porro at Manchester City. Porro at home to Fulham and away to Bournemouth it's not thrilling, but it's okay. I'd look at getting those 2 Liverpool games out of the way, City, Newcastle, and then maybe make a Porro to a Liverpool decision there in 15. That's my thinking. Once I've got a little bit more clarity, if Bradley feels like secure, if not, yeah, what you said, Konate, I think.
It's interesting because we were talking a few weeks ago about Robertson being at risk and Tsimikas being a potential one that's going to keep coming in. The fact that Trent's now out kind of means Robertson's more likely to be locked in because you wouldn't want to be playing your, if you can call them second choice, like Tsimikas and Bradley in the fullback positions as opposed to Robertson and Trent. It's quite different.
Well, Tsimikas started against Leverkusen and the previous league game against Brighton. So I think...
But Robertson started against Villa.
Yeah, but then you could look at it and say, well, Tsimikas has had those 2 games, play Robertson against Villa, it's fine. There's possibly an anticipation that Robertson was going to play against McGinn as well. We spoke about McGinn and his big bum last week. So that's the sort of one Robertson maybe enjoys the physical duel a little bit more. He struggled more this year against people like Madueke, Saka. So it might be there's a choice there on Robertson, Tsimikas, dependent on opponent. I don't think we should say definitively that there's a first choice Liverpool left back at the moment. Tsimikas is not a buy for fantasy. He might prove to be a good option further down the line. And he's another one, I think, if Robertson got injured for a while, you'd feel very more confident about Tsimikas than Bradley in a weird way. Just because I think, yeah, sure, Gomez could cover left back as well, but right back is more likely. You're coming into a period in any case where obviously, Game Week 14's midweek set of fixtures. Then you got the Christmas period. Like your Robertson and Tsimikas, they're not playing every game. Clearly going to be like one play. That week I've said for Liverpool with Newcastle after City and then Everton afterwards. There is no chance Tsimikas or Robertson start all 3 of them games. None. So what's the point in either of them from that perspective? You might feel Tsimikas, you might get lucky, you might get benched at Newcastle and then be ready for the Merseyside derby. That doesn't interest me. But the Bradley scenario, I want to keep a very close eye on. I kind of agree with you though, Suj. If I had to buy a Liverpool defender right now, I'd go Konate. I think he's been playing ever so well, and that's really important. When Quance has had the odd opportunity, it's not been good. So we always thought if something happened to Konate, Quance would come in. That's probably more likely to be Joe Gomez now, as or if that ever happened. But we have to say, look, we're 11 games in. Konate had one arm problem. It looked like he was going to miss the rest of the year and then played a few days later. He's clear first choice now. No doubt about it. And they're defending like a top team. They are not as wild as Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool. And structurally, they're going to be more difficult to beat than I think Jurgen Klopp's Liverpool were last year. They've got themselves a lead. I think everybody at that football club can smell the opportunity in the moment because Arsenal have had a really difficult run and they've obviously dropped points over this difficult run. And at this moment in time, City are vulnerable in any, and I mean this, any football match at this moment. So Liverpool know that there's a great opportunity there because Arsenal now have got to put their fixtures get good. They've got to put a consistent run on the board and hope that, Liverpool drop points across City and Newcastle, for example. Liverpool win the next 3 games, they'll really take some catching if that's the case. Right now, I would say Arsenal's more likely to catch them than than City because Arsenal's fixture swing is now. They definitely smell the opportunity. On the attacking mids, Jota will probably be back around about game week 14 over this period as well. And whether it's Jota, Gakpo, Nunes, Diaz, it's clearly going to be some rotation around here.
Yeah, so it's a bit of a frustration, is that?
For Mo, there is a chance somewhere that he doesn't play, but I think his returns now are so off the scale that it would pay the extra for Salah over Jota, etc. In a weird way, Suj, although it really kind of did me over because I captained Jota when he got injured. If he hadn't got injured, I don't think I'd have Mo Salah in my team right now. And I'd be having a really tough decision to make. And right now, we'd have to say Salah is worth paying for.
If some buts might be maybes. Let's talk about the Sunday games. There's still 4 to get through, James. Manchester United 3, Leicester 0.
Wasn't a thriller by the sounds of it. Bruno finally got his returns. He was unhappy that he didn't get the goal for the assist as well, but the thigh effort is clearly going wide. I guess this is some justification for Bruno owners and some of the unlucky nature of their returns so far.
There's only one person that owns Bruno, that's Andy. No one else owns him.
There's plenty of people that own Bruno. And to be honest, I saw a number
and
of
everybody
people,
else that owns him doesn't get as much shit as he does,
well,
though.
the really happy ones are those who've actually gone and bought him this period and punted him for this 3-game period. Like, well done. The returns are a long-range effort, a pass outside the box
but he does
also
score
becomes a long-range effort.
But that's how. But he does that. That's what he's good at that, right?
Oh, yeah, no, this and Bruno Fernandes in terms of returns so far has been unlucky. I'm just saying there's a little bit of a leveler in the fact that 2 of his returns have come from long range efforts, and the other one, he gets his thigh on something, it's going wide and deflecting the goal. So he's got a monster haul off of not a lot. Yes, it feels like that was owed and coming to him, though. I guess if you were to punt something United offensively for these next couple of games, he's probably now the only one you can go to.
I think he's a standout United asset.
Well, he's priced the most, so he should be.
Yeah, I get that, but he's not priced premium. Mid-tier, 8.3.
It's not really of any interest to me, I'll be honest. That's not to criticise anyone who's gone there or criticise anyone that wants to go there.
The reason
it's just
he's
not on my radar.
Yeah, the reason he's not of interest for me is because if I wanted to get him, I should have done it last week, or I need to do it this week with Ipswich Everton. And as soon as I take out, I think I'd rather go to Isak this week. And then I'm not Bruno Fernandes with just Everton, because after that, Arsenal, Forest, City, Bournemouth, there's 4 tougher games there. So it's kind of like buy him now because I'm in such a luxurious position that there's literally nothing else I want to do, or not. And it's then not going to be until 17, 18, at least till I come back and look at it. That's my biggest problem, is those fixtures, really, James. And if I was going to do it, I should have done it last week or the week before, really.
Yeah, I think it'd be popular for wildcarders.
Wildcarders, of course, completely different because you are in that luxury position.
And you would also, I think, be in a position of strength once you hit 14 and United play Arsenal, where you can take a pick of so many other things, which the majority of which is obviously going to be at a lower price bracket. So, yeah, you'd be very tempted if you're on wildcard, because I think if you're on wildcard, you want a United offensive asset. There isn't a huge amount of trust in Højlund. Rashford's gone off after 57 minutes. Garnacho's obviously come on and scored, sulked about it. And the standout player was arguably Amad Diallo. That really is a punt at this stage. But the reason it's a punt is because I think you'd look at the weekend and go, Diallo will play the next game. It's a different bloody manager and a different bloody formation.
Is it. I was going to say Diallo is the standout under Van Nistelrooy. But obviously that's because Van Nistelrooy likes him. He praised him in the European game in midweek and so on. But he's not the manager anymore, James. So, yeah.
Yeah. Garnacho's goal is quite important for me because he's actually, since I bought him, unbelievably, he's gone up 0.2. The fact he's scored again means that I probably don't need to worry about the value perspective of it and give myself a little bit more time. Probably take these next 2 fixtures and a little bit like what's just happened and know, okay, if he doesn't start, he gets half hour against 2 potentially weak opponents where he can potentially be dangerous. It's probably just as likely he starts the first hour, comes off after 58 minutes and gets me a 1-pointer. So I think I'll probably stick with that for the next couple. Then I'm obviously looking to move that on slash bench it slash rotate it. But I wouldn't be investing in him new now. Wouldn't be investing in Rashford. I think Diallo would. How do you know what Amrin will think of Diallo?
Yeah, we don't. We don't. I do think one thing though, Amarim will make them better. There's no doubt,
no doubt about
it.
that.
And they are a serious threat for top five.
I was asked them stream on Friday what United's target should be this season.
Yeah, I was listening.
Doubt.
It should be fifth as a minimum. Yeah,
because
I think
fifth is highly likely to get Champions League this year.
If they can get that double pivot midfield of Ugarte and Mainu when he comes back working well, and they've definitely got firepower up top and a bit of solidity at the back, I think they'll do okay. And Bruno Fernandes, I think him and Amarim will strike up a decent partnership. Yeah, Leicester
fifth, by the way, just briefly, and just looking at the table, I would say fifth is achievable from everybody from Manchester United up. From 13th upward. None of them teams are out of the running for fifth.
We're only 3 points behind United. Go on, go down to 14th, mate.
Won't, sweetheart. I didn't even do that as a dig.
No, I know. Because the only thing I would say is Brentford, Bournemouth, I probably would rule out of it just because of the quality of the others. But yeah, bar that, I think everybody else is in for
fifth. Will get consistency. Bournemouth, 60 points over the last 38 was the stat, right? And won't be far off, mate. Honestly, taking too many points off each other. I mean, Chelsea are third, and I know Chelsea have had some tough fixtures, but it's under 2 points per game, right? And that's third.
Yeah,
everybody's below it, but everybody's close to it, right? So it's the consistent animals will be the ones that break through, and I'm pretty confident Chelsea will stay with the other three rather than drop down to that. So I really think that will be the top four. And then it's a race for fifth. Leicester, you're not looking at anything for fantasy. One interesting note: Jamie Vardy obviously didn't play, back problem. Also, it's not a huge impact for them, but it does make them light for numbers. Cooper said after the game that Ricardo Pereira is out for 4 months with a hamstring problem.
Yeah, so that's only relevant from about 5 seasons ago when we actually wanted him in fantasy, mate.
No, it's not relevant for fantasy, but it is very relevant if they then get more injuries in the fullback areas. Will be a problem. That's light now. Like if you said to me, right, what happens now if just Justin or Christensen gets injured? My honest answer is I'm not sure. And I think we should be aware of that moving forward in future weeks. You know, they're playing Chelsea next, for example, right? And please, they've got 2 Chelsea offensive assets still.
Nottingham Forest 1, Newcastle 3. Obviously, Forest started well when the goal from the corner was decent. You're suddenly thinking, all right, they've gone 1-0 up against Newcastle. If they can keep their defensive solidity, maybe there's the fairy tale continues, let's say, but it didn't.
No, I like Nuno's interview after. I mean, I've not watched a lot of it because I was somewhere else having the time of my life, as you all know. I liked Nuno's interview afterwards. So, okay, we got beat by the better team today. We had a good start, move forward, smiling about it. It's like, and it's true. That's how Forest fans should feel. I get it. It'll feel like missed opportunity and stuff like that. But you've had a brilliant start. They will have results like this. There are tough ones to come now. I think it's probably encouraging for those who want Arsenal attacking assets to see that vulnerability in Forest defensively in the second half, because they haven't showed a huge amount of vulnerability recently. And the decent side. They are strong defensively. I don't think we wouldn't look at all these options in game week 12 and let's say he is fit. I don't think anyone's going Saka captain, for example. That's because of Forest strength defensively versus, say, Leicester, Chelsea, or even my team, right? Actually, no, as I said, Haaland's probably the best choice. You wouldn't pick Saka for captaincy against Forest, I don't think. You wouldn't pick Havertz for captaincy against Nottingham Forest. In fact, there's not many times they're going to feel comfortable captaining a player against Nottingham Forest because they feel like they'll lose games 1-2. So it's good credit to Newcastle.
The only thing is it's at the Emirates as a mitigation.
Oh, yeah, Arsenal could beat them comfortably. Don't get me wrong, but it doesn't scream like, oh, I think Arsenal win 4-0. I'm sure we could all sit and go, I think Arsenal win, but it doesn't feel like that, does it?
No.
And that's because what Forest have done so far this season. I'm very interested with what wildcarders do with them because for me, it'd just be a non-event, would be my take. great. He sits at home in 13, but either side, it's Arsenal away, City away, and potentially a rejuvenated Manchester United away. I'm not going near them. But people will look at the numbers and say, like, XGC is still great. Do you want like a Murillo, a Milenkovic, Aina? Take your pick from that. Even Moreno, Sells in goal. It's all fine. I just couldn't be having from this stage attacking on a wild card, attacking those 3 away games that they've got coming up.
No.
So that would be off the table. You're not going to be comfortable in too many of these games coming up playing these Forest guys, other than Ipswich at home in 13. By the way, as we'll come on to in a second, they're not terrible.
Who, Ipswich?
Yeah. If you're on Chris Wood, do you hold here for consistency? And I get it. He's talisman capability. They could lose all these games 2-1, 3-1, and he scores in all of them, and that's perfect. But I would be selling.
Yeah. I can understand, like, it's hard to sell a player when they've been so consistent for you. People who own Brian and Bomo will be in the same boat when it comes to Gameweek 14, 15, where it's like, you're selling him, but he's been so consistent for you. You kind of feel, what am I doing here? I had the same thing with Smith Rowe when I sold him. The only thing was I was upgrading all the way to Salah, so it kind of made it all right. It is difficult to sell a Wood. I can understand that, but you're right. Like, it's not going to be there. James and his jokes. Let's move to Spurs 1, Ipswich 2, shall we?
Well done. You've cut me off of Villa. Now you cut me off of Newcastle. We've got to give the Geordies some. We spoke about Isak, who's hype. We won't do that anymore. Hall is the one defensively if you want to invest. I think
he's their highest scoring defensive asset is Lewis Hall. He scored more than any of the other defenders.
That's not anything to write home about.
No, it's like 35 points or something.
The offensive data is nothing to get excited about for him either, but he is 4.3 and they've got some good fixtures coming up where you can definitely use him, for example. Just a note as well, this is a while off, but for those who have 8 Nori and have Arsenal defensive and do invest in Lewis Hall, I think there might be a little bit of a surge to bench boost in game week 16. When I look at Wolves at home to Ipswich and Newcastle at home to Leicester, I think it might be one, if people got Rodgers or Forest away, that's okay. You're benching Rodgers in fixtures like that. If people do commit to Brighton, they're at home to Palace. I can see it.
Yeah.
I can see a few potentially look that much because I've looked ahead at my plans and I'm like, oh, right. So in game week 16, I've got 8 Norwich at home to Ipswich, Hall at home to Leicester if I buy him, Gabriel at home to Everton. Porro's at Southampton. You'd bench Porro, wouldn't you?
Yeah, more than likely. Yeah,
you'd have to.
Yeah.
Liverpool, but I might be going, like I said, Porro to Konate, and having say Konate at home to Fulham. What do you do? Is bench Konate at home to Fulham? It's something I noticed over the weekend. Game week 16 might be something people look at and then suddenly go, I think I might want to bench boost here. Just a note. Just the other thing just to say for Newcastle is they played the same system again with like Joe Linton and Willock, but it does look like they changed it during the game where Gordon went back to the left and obviously Joe Linton's gone to the right where he scored this absolutely brilliant goal. Gordon is a way more interesting fantasy asset if he's playing off the left, I think.
Yep.
But for me, unlike last year, I really think if you want to invest in Newcastle, it's Alexander Isak. And he's going to be really desirable for a lot of people. For those who are on the combination of like Wood, Cunha, Visser, you're going to be really happy with what you've got. But this was always my concern is the temptation now for a player like this, because he's got West Ham at home next, Palace away, sure. Then there's Liverpool, Brentford, Leicester, Ipswich. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I need Alexander Isak.
Tottenham 1, you need him in your team, mate. Tottenham 1, Ipswich 2. Tell me what happened here, because you racked up 17 shots, but an XG of only 1.55. They had fewer shots, but way more big chances, even though you dominated possession. And obviously they took that 2-0 lead and ended up hanging on 2-1. I think my highlight of my weekend was learning that Sammy Schmodix is a West Ham fan. That was the only good thing that happened as a Hammer this weekend, James.
Firstly, congratulations to Ipswich, deserving winners, and kind of put up the sort of performance which was unexpected based on their last couple of away performances, which was it conceded four at Brentford and four at West Ham. Didn't exactly set them up to make any of us think they'd put on a good defensive showing against my team. But they did. They're helped massively by Axel Twanzebe being back available. I was quite suspicious on Friday. Not that that would have put me off captain Solanke or anything by Axel Twanzebe, not at all. But it's clear that McKenna fancies him as his first choice right back. He'd obviously had this terrible thumb injury. And I was really suspicious on Friday when McKenna said Twanzebe will definitely be available for game week 12.
Right.
It made me suspicious that he might have been available for game week 11, and he was. What that allowed them to do was play Ben Johnson in front. Ben Johnson is essentially a right back, was a right-sided midfielder, obviously gave a really nice cover on that side of the pitch against Son. And Johnson did a really good job actually in terms of tracking Destiny Udogie. So that side of the pitch was quite stable. It allowed them to have their bias on the left-hand side, which they really, really have a favoritism to. And you see that quite clearly on the second goal that Ipswich score, which is obviously a disaster from our perspective. Leif Davis, outstanding. And spoke about his concentration. Well, he was good. That's all I can tell you. It was good. Johnson never done him.
Yeah.
You could say Johnson had that chance in the first half, but it wasn't specific to Leif Davis. Mine was Johnson on the outside of him. No, I think Davis listens to Planet FPL and was very, very aware that he had to be quite narrow, keep Johnson on the outside of him, and got himself into good defensive positions. When he's on it, he does really strike like a young Luke Shaw. It's meant as a compliment. If anybody doesn't think that, it's meant as a compliment. Even just the way he carries the ball is very similar to Luke Shaw when he's at his best. Really good player. Really impressed. Really impressed because I think we've all known what the offensive stuff can potentially be for him. The defensive performance was good as well. Helped by Sammy Schmodics in front of him, who will score goals. Very little doubt about that. Although quite what Brennan Johnson is doing on that moment where Sammy Schmodics is able to lay down on the floor and complete an overhead kick while he's looking at him. Brennan, if you're listening, shut down your fucking Instagram, mate, because it's gone to shit since you reopened it. So shut it back down, please, mate. Up front, the problem with Schmodics is you're not paying that for FPL. It's too expensive. Yep. Despite the fact I think you'll get returns.
Do you know, if you ask me, is he a forward or a midfielder, I couldn't tell you, and I don't even know what price he is. I've just
you're
you're
not paying it versus Semenyo and Rodgers and stuff like that. Yeah, I don't think, despite the fact they've got some good fixtures, and there's a chance that you got like Jack Clark competing with him and stuff like that. Amari Hutchinson was really good as the 10, carried for them in really good moments. Nice player, and Delap up front was fantastic. Suj, it was a moment where he even made Christian Romero pull out of a tackle. He was worried by him.
Scared of the physicality of it.
I tell you what, that lad, he's a young boy. Can he look after himself? Absolutely, definitely. If you want an Ipswich offensive one, and there are some good fixtures coming up, I would suggest United Forest would probably wait till after that. Then you look at Palace at home, Bournemouth at home, Wolves away, Newcastle at home as a 4 is not too bad at all.
Listen, 6 goals and 1 assist, so that's a goal every other game. It's perfectly fine for an Ipswich attacker. He obviously missed the Brentford game, was benched when Hurst played. Do you think that was just resting him and a little bit of protection because he is a young lad?
On what I saw at the weekend, I can't tell you that sort of thing's not going to happen again. And yes, it might be that, Suj. Delap will be first choice. And when I look at him versus what Southampton and Leicester have got offensively, and I know Jamie Vardy's very experienced, that might be a difference that gives them a real chance. They've got players in that team, particularly with Delap and Schmodics, who will score goals. You are not going to buy Delap over João Pedro.
No.
Reality, right? Really good performance from them. They deserve to win. I think Dara Shea is potentially on radar for me as a 4.0 because he's clear first choice. Jacob Greaves might be back for game week 12. I would suggest that Burgess and O'Shea did well enough. They deserve to play again in game week 12. Cameron Burgess is 3.9, but I do think Greaves will take over his place. That was much better from them defensively. For my team, bad day at the office. Can't sell it to you any better than that. It didn't have the feel of any urgency or anything. Like you said, Ipswich hung on. Didn't really. Like we had all the ball and all that kind of stuff, but other than Solanke's chance in injury time, after we scored the first, we didn't really have any big chances. I can't really remember Muric making a save in the game. We had decent moments. I wouldn't say we weren't terrible. I'll tell you, if we're talking about outright absolute terrible, I'll tell you, we weren't outright absolute terrible, but the result is terrible, and we didn't play with enough urgency. This problem with conceding the first goal,
It's happened again.
You can't keep getting away with it. And the difference between this and all the times we keep bringing it back is Ipswich scored the second. So that now you're giving yourself a mountain to climb. I'll be honest, I'm watching the whole of the second half, Suj, and not thinking about anything other than winning the game. And it was only when it got to about sort of 5 minutes to go, I started getting towards the point of thinking I would maybe take a draw.
Take a draw here, yeah.
Because it did also, when the first went in, you thought, we'll get another now. We'll at least get something out of this. But we didn't create big chances. But I'm still thinking 5 minutes ago, if we go 2-2 at any point here, we're gonna get it next and win it. And maybe that would have happened. That would have been really harsh on Ipswich. They deserved their day and they deserved the victory. For Tottenham FPL assets, bad day. Johnson is still, despite what I said, is reasonable to keep. Dominic Solanke is still reasonable to keep. Defensively, I would bin. If people do want to invest, yeah, bin it. Yeah, I said that. I said this last week. There was no way I was going to sell him before this one and stuff. It's just not worth the money. If I was on wildcard and I did want the Tottenham defensive, arguably just go Destiny Udogie now, because Porro is not worth that ticket price. Basically, is what I'm saying to you. Udogie at like 4.9 is probably better value. Kulusevski wasn't at his best. The problem with Decky is he doesn't run a game of football. He's a moments player. Like you get him and you need to get him on it and stuff, and it's great, but you can have 10, 15 minutes in a game where he doesn't feel like he's on it. Don't worry, James Maddison is no threat to his position in this team at the moment. Sonny is not worth the money. For those who taken the punt, good luck to you. Well done. He's not worth that price ticket, and I'd be moving it on. Solanke and Johnson, because of their price values, are both reasonable to hold, but I want to get from Solanke to Isak. I've been pretty clear on that. Johnson, there's less places to go, it feels like. You're probably more looking down to, if you don't own Semenya or Rogers, or Mitoma maybe. Johnson to Mitoma might be
just looking at his 6.8.
Similar price. Gordon, if you could get up to Gordon, that's interesting. That's quite punty. It's a long way to Fernandes. And I'm just thinking about players within Johnson's kind of value range that I'd want to move to. Like Garnacho might have been one that doesn't feel like you can.
He came to mind, but it came out of mind straight away. Let's say midfielders. There's just, but I mean, the thing is, there's not that much at that price value.
Longer term with Tottenham assets, if you hold them, if it's to be honest, I was surprised that he came off rather than Neto yesterday.
Martinelli is 1.1 more.
Nah, that's wasting one of the spots from one of the best teams in the league. I know he scored, I wouldn't.
Then you've got Mitoma at 6.4. Other than that, the only point scorers in midfield.
The Ipswich fans will be screaming Sammy Schmodix, by the way.
who are more than 6.5. I mean, Madueke and Barnes are less. Martinelli's 0.1 more, but that's it. Kulu is less. Garnacho is less. There's nothing interesting unless you can get up to 7.5 or more, James. So really, you're going to come down, I think, from him.
Yeah, most likely. On Tottenham assets, just generally, if it's not clear already, clearly this team has a fundamental problem with consistency. There will therefore be erratic nature to the returns of Tottenham players at any point. I mean this genuinely. We could go to Manchester City and win, but also go there and get absolutely slaughtered. And that's probably the more likely, despite my criticisms of City on this podcast. So Solanke is going to do things like drop a 16-pointer against Villa and then drop 2-pointers against Ipswich. You are going to get things like that. So if you want Solanke and Johnson for their consistency to hold, that is reasonable. But like attacking for the fixtures, we wouldn't bother, because this team is too much of a letdown. He doesn't have leadership. There's a big fundamental problem behind that. Tottenham Wednesday with Clates.
Good. Which is a segue into Arsenal dropping points again. Chelsea won, Arsenal won, though dropping points at Stamford Bridge is no what's the word I'm looking for, James? It's not a disaster because it's a difficult place to go, and they'll be happy. I mean, Arsenal had quite a few chances. Did disallowed goal in the first half. They might feel like they could have come away with a result here. They had 4 big chances in the game as well, but in the end, taking a point and live to fight another day, right?
Yeah, it felt like a fair result. I me's both teams missed some big moments. You know, the Malo Gusto header in the first half, Arsenal with the late chance right at the end, where Trossard's always going to play. It would be weird if he lets it go actually at that moment. Couldn't tell if it was on or off. So both teams, I think, could put claims to think they could have got more from the game. Felt like a fair result. It was interesting. The equalising goals were really interesting, and Arteta was very critical of it. But it comes about because something really strange happens. Like it's a breakdown from a set piece, right? And Colwell and Fofana stay forward. And what that means is Arsenal get pinned in with a back six. Partey and Rice end up in the line of the back six. They shouldn't both end up there. It should just be one. And therefore that space in the central area for Neto spots it and goes and attacks it is great. It got me thinking about the idea, actually. I don't know if teams would be brave enough to do this. But Villa pretty much did it when they won at the Emirates in April, about teams being brave enough to go and play a front two against them. Looking at teams coming up though, and I don't see many being brave enough to do it. I don't really see any. But it might be something that's the right tactic against Arsenal. Obviously, in stages leaves you a little bit more open. But most teams defend in a 4-4-2. Might be the way to hurt them most, you know, is play a front two, just looking at that, just pinning them in a bit deeper. And it obviously keeps Gabriel and Saliba pretty occupied all the time, so puts more pressure on the midfield area. I don't see teams coming up in the future that are going to do that against them, though. Odegaard, I don't know how he's got through 90 minutes, and he didn't look tired. That is...
I mean, he's had a long recovery.
Yeah, probably Arsenal would probably take good care of him. I don't doubt that. That is such a game changer for them. For me, when he's on it, he's the best player in the league. And the reason why I put him over others is because of his work off the ball as well. He's probably, for me, he's the best pressing number 10 in the world.
There's no doubt about it. I think it's one of those where who's the greatest of all time and all that. Everybody's got different attributes, right? Sometimes you're comparing apples with oranges. He would no doubt be in the conversation as one of the best players and also one of the most influential. Like for Arsenal now, when I look at that 11, I would say that that's probably first choice for Arsenal. Raya in goal, Timber, Gabriel, Saliba, Ben White, Odegaard, Partey, Rice in midfield, Saka, Havertz, Martinelli. I think that's their first choice 11 if everybody was fit. You may argue I don't know who else gets in.
That's the one that's a debate. It's Calafiori.
Maybe Calafiori.
And maybe Trossard for Martinelli as well, right?
Yeah, they rotate in and out 50-50. Yep. But apart from that, it's as good as first choice. And so they will now feel, right, okay, if we're going to close this gap, we've got to get on it.
Arsenal's fixtures are now brilliant for a very, very long time. Between now and going to Anfield, which could be a title decider in game week 36, I think it is. The only away game they've got over that period now against an expected top 8 opponent is Manchester United. And that's ages away. It's in like March or something. They have got so many of the big away games out of the way, right? They've won at my place. They've won at Villa. They've drawn at Chelsea. They've drawn at City. They lost at Newcastle. It's not ideal, but you know what? I tell you what, 8 points from those 5 games, it's not bad, you know. And you have to factor that Arsenal have had those games because there ain't many teams you'll fancy to go to the Emirates and win. I think Liverpool actually missed an opportunity to put Arsenal away in that fixture a couple of weeks ago. And I get the hesitancy about it, but Arsenal at that point were clearly really understrength. Now they're about to walk into this brilliant run of fixtures, and as you just said, nearly back to full strength. Now, it could genuinely be, I know we joke about it a lot, Saka might have actually picked up a problem yesterday.
He went off for 80 minutes or something, wasn't it?
Yeah, he definitely put his arm up to say, I need to come off. So let's wait and see. That's certainly one I wouldn't be buying early going into game week 12. And to preempt it, guys, guess what it's going to be going into game week 12? He ain't going to tell you. Unless it's bad, unless it's really bad.
In which case, he'll tell us it's really good.
He's going to be yellow flagged going into that. We know all this already.
Maybe we'll learn more from England, James. Maybe England will be more forthcoming with his situation.
He's not going to play for England. That's a certainty.
They're going to pull him out now. And Cole Palmer as well.
Neither's Declan Rice. He's not. There'll be a number of pullouts from England. I don't blame any player. Sod this Nations League stuff when you got all this coming up. After this period, it's so congested over the next 3 months or so. So to be honest, people might hate it. I understand it from the player and club perspective. Who wants to play Nations League football? Anyway, I think it's attack Arsenal now in terms of their assets. Now, at the moment, you probably can't attack Saka. I think Havertz should be on radar for people because he plays the whole game basically for every game for Arsenal now. That's a good valuation where you can have investment on them offensively. I think most people will find in the next few weeks that they want to move to double defensive. I would, at this point, if I had none, I'd be concerned. Despite the fact there's been no returns, I'd be concerned. I'd be looking to get that sorted as a priority with Nottingham Forest at home, West Ham away next. That would be a priority for me. And I could yet end up on that treble. If there was words, over this period, Suj, for example, that Saka was, out for 2-3 months, I'll go treble Arsenal defence. I think.
You wouldn't then think of Trossard or dropping in someone else? No.
Nah, they'll just share the burden. As a lot of what they have done, obviously, this period. The only one I'd be bothered about cutting off is Havertz.
I like the thought of Havertz as a differential.
Odegaard is going to be really good for Saka.
Yeah.
I will want him back. I'm pretty confident of that. For Chelsea,
it's another team that when I look at it,
it's the same thing.
I do feel like if I look at Sanchez, okay, Gusto and Reece James, you could argue. Fofana, Colwill, Cucurella, Caicedo and Lavia, Madueke, Palmer, Neto, Jackson. That's almost first choice 11, isn't it, for them? Would you argue Enzo Fernandez over Lavia? Maybe not, really.
I'd tell you one interesting aspect to this, though. Lavia went off injured towards the end of the game. We think. We don't know.
But he's flagged as an injury substitution.
It's a weird one. It's a tactical aspect, but I think it might be good for Palmer. What they're doing at the moment is shoving Gusto into a 10 position. Okay. So Palmer recently has been playing this more left-sided half space. I'd said this as soon as he did it against Newcastle, prefer him in the right half space. Now, I've got no concerns over him. The opponents they played very recently have obviously been difficult. And you see in the opening minutes with the shot he had from distance, like the capability in the boy's left foot, right? So there's no huge concern. But I think the people were happier to leave Gusto go into that area because the end product at the end is not going to be good enough. What they'll probably do if Lavia's out is put Fernandez back in the team, and they'll do what they did when they went to your place and won so easily, is push Fernandez into that left half space, bring Palmer back to the right, and they'll shove Cucurella from left back into the more kind of the double pivot in terms of the sixth position.
Gusto holds his position.
Well, under that circumstance, every chance Gusto will come out of the team and Reece James would play instead.
Because Reece James doesn't like to get forward.
He just can't in the same way anymore. But they'll want to use Reece James more as a right-sided centre-back, probably more than Gusto. And it's not to say Gusto can't do it, but that might be the way they go if Lavia's out. And to be honest, Lavia's broke down so much over the last couple of years. This is probably something that will happen at some point, even if it is not now. It means for me, I want to have interest in one of them Chelsea fullbacks. Not happening, mate. If I was investing in Chelsea defensively, it'd be the goalkeeper, who obviously gets big criticism for the first goal. The criticism from me wouldn't be on the fact that he leaves the space at the near post, be that he doesn't go to the ball. Going towards directly the ball will narrow the angles down. There is no way at that moment an Edison or an Alisson is not all over Martinelli like a rash. He just stays there. So therefore, he makes Martinelli's decision really easy. The space is fine. The fact he gets beat there is not the problem. It's the fact he doesn't go towards the ball and commit in that moment. But it would be him or Colwill or Fofana if I was investing in Chelsea defensively. And
Cool.
it's all boring. I had a look at Colwell versus Fafana last night, and I was flip a fucking coin, mate.
Good, 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 James. That's a wrap of the games, and obviously we now have an international break to digest. Look, we can ramble on a little bit longer, even though we've definitely had Manchester City's level of added minutes into this game, into this podcast. Do you want to tell the listeners what we got for them for the rest of this week? Whilst I pull up the questions, we're going to get through some of these today because it's an international break. We're going to do it.
Can I tell you something? I actually read through the questions last night. I'd never do that anymore because I actually read through them to see if there was anything good. No wonder you don't read many out. My goodness. This week on Planet FPL.
Out.
This week on Planet FPL. We can talk about that if you want. Tomorrow, People's Poll podcast. That's available now. There are 3 options in the vote. That'll be available for you till around about 5 o'clock-ish. Each team's favoured starting 11 when everyone's fit. A look at team over and under performance so far, or one positive and one negative stat on each team so far this season. Feels like a kind of nice place to take stock of what's happened so far, considering we're at the international break. Clayton and James show Wednesday, Thursday clash of correspondences, Arsenal versus Nottingham Forest with Adam Pritchard and Mark Southerns. We've also got Southampton v Liverpool and Newcastle v West Ham, both next week for COTC as well. Ask James stream on Friday. I think I'm going to do 12 o'clock probably, Suj. If you want to support the show, it's www.patreon.com/Planet FPL. Additional content this week includes probably some Tottenham ranting on Wednesday. Money in politics, apparently, on Thursday this week.
Not even apparently. I'm going to be putting a question out in the Slack channel to get questions that people want covered for that.
Oh my God.
I thought rather than go rogue, let's talk about what people want us to talk about.
And a shout out for Gavin Richardson, who reminded me on my deadline stream that we've been promising for ages to do a security in football podcast. We're going to do that on Friday as well.
Good, good, good. Yes, as James mentioned, supporting the show is patreon.com/Planet Health FPL keeps the lights on. You'll get access to our Slack community. There's nearly 800 engaged managers in there talking about their teams and helping you with all your decisions across a range of fantasy games. There's Gaffer players in there, Champions League fantasy, all that kind of stuff as well.
Gaffer, I got 43 points from one of my goalkeepers this week.
You'll have to explain more. Maybe
the FPL chips are rubbish. That's all I'm saying.
What was it? 5x or something?
Points for saves and stuff like that.
Oh, mad. Yes, indeed. So you get the additional content that James has mentioned, as well as a fixture planning spreadsheet and a whole load of other reasons that it's well worth coming and having a look if you want to come and be part of our Patreon community. Questions, James? Are you ready for this?
Yeah, okay. I'm conscious to talk about Aston Villa because we haven't really.
Yeah.
Watkins fine, Rogers fine, Dean the best defensive one. Go on then.
Don't buy a defensive Villa asset is my advice.
That's
not a chance.
Lee Jackson
FPL
would say.
Says off topic. It's never off topic. Being it was Harry's birthday yesterday. Is your son? I've got 2 of them as well. Allowed to support another team, or is Spurs a non-negotiable? From my point of view, it's either support West Ham or don't like football. And my kids chose don't like football. But it's literally that. If you're going to like football,
that's barely understandable.
Yeah, football's a shit sport. It's a game. It's not even a sport.
My son also has no choice. He has 0 interest in football at the moment. And if it stays that way, he's going to save me an absolute fortune financially. So I'm not that bothered. But if he ever tells me about any other club, then there's no more dinner. Cook yourself.
Nah, it was funny. I saw David Beckham talking about why one of his kids supports Arsenal, for example, and then the other support Man United and all that kind of thing. I don't get it. Like, I'd happily take my kids to the Emirates or any other stadium, but they go knowing that we don't support this team, and that's that. Gerald Stapleton, James, do you think Chelsea are title contenders?
I think they can be. Again, I mean, their fixture run is mad as well. their fixtures up until the March international break. They've got to play Villa home and away, Tottenham away, and Brighton away. And that's basically it for the expected top 9 up until the March international break. Same, we've just played a lot of the big ones, right? So Arsenal and Chelsea now, in terms of flip, in terms of difficulty, right to the top for a really long-term period now. I think for them to be in contention, they've got to have consistency. They're obviously a distance off Liverpool. So what's the difference between them and Liverpool? That 10 points? Is it 10 or 9 points?
About, yeah.
Yeah. So there's a gap. And listen, with the fixtures Chelsea have got, they are definitely capable of putting
9 points,
5-6 wins in a row, the sort of thing you've got to do to put yourself in contention. I think it's just, in all honesty, the age profile of that squad is by a mile the youngest in the league. And therefore, it in itself will also have the odd inconsistent game, I think, that will probably rule it out. But opportunity is there. What's going on? I mean, if Liverpool suddenly had a bad run, then it's wide open, isn't it? For someone like Chelsea to come through that period. But Liverpool have got to have a bad run, because I don't think that Chelsea would be capable of putting the sort of 10-game winning streak that we know historically that Arsenal and Manchester City can do. I don't quite see that in Chelsea at the moment because of the inexperience of the squad. But if it doesn't need that sort of consistency to be in contention, then yeah, sure. Absolutely. Because I think like when there were best 11s on the pitch, they're pretty much a match for anyone.
The biggest standout statistic looking at the table in front of me when I looked is Liverpool only conceded 6 goals all season. There's not another team that's in less than double digits. Second least goals conceded is Forest with 10, but 6 goals all season. Defensively, they're just so much more solid than everybody else.
Liverpool, when you think about if you think about it, they've been the best team in the league. We're saying that at the moment, probably don't go any of the offensive guys other than Salah. Why would you not consider double Liverpool defense?
Yeah, it's true.
Particularly if let's say if Trent is out for a long period.
Kind of affordable as well, right?
Well, yeah, if Trent is out for a long period, I mean, Van Dijk's up to 6.3 now. But if Trent was out for a long-term period, you can have Konate and Bradley for circa 10 million, right?
Yeah, that's true. Right, John No H says, it's because there's no H in the way he spells his name, James, says 2 very important questions, and I think they are very important questions. Do chips belong on a fry-up? I'm going to say yes if you're not having the fry-up for breakfast, because I think having a fry-up for lunch or even dinner is perfectly acceptable. It's just protein. Bacon, sausage, eggs, beans. It's just protein. There's nothing wrong with the fry-up. And so if you're having the fry-up for lunch or dinner, yes, chips are okay on a fry-up. I wouldn't have them for breakfast.
But if it's 9 o'clock in the morning, it's hash browns, isn't it?
Hash browns all day long.
Yeah.
Yes.
What's the second question?
Oh, can I pull you up on something as well, by the way? When you went on Black Box with Az a couple of weeks ago, 3 weeks ago, whatever it was, and you didn't raise the hash brown.
I taught him how to read the alphabet properly.
Yeah, but you didn't raise the hash brown challenge with him that we were going to try and get sorted.
Oh, I've told Az. Anyway, we can have that hash brown challenge anytime.
You've got to do it live on air in a stream, because that's calling someone out good and proper.
He's an idiot. If he wants to take a little fat me on in an eating challenge, I'm foaming at the mouth thinking about it. He's out of his depth, mate.
John's second question is, do chips belong with the Chinese? No. If you're going to do it, and I don't mind dipping in the sweet and sour sauce and whatever, I've got no issue with it.
If you get them big, massive ones, if it's the Chinese that does them big, massive ones.
Or fish and chip shop chips.
No, I mean really massive. Proper big ones.
But
then
fish and
yes.
chip shops
Otherwise,
chips
no.
are massive. Surely.
No, bigger than that, man. Bigger than fish and chip shop chips. Bigger than anything that Az could handle.
Steve wants to know, how do we get more than 3 forwards in our team? You have Mo Salah as one of your midfielders, because he's a forward, if ever there was. That's it.
He's saying about having like 4 or 5 forwards. I mean, look, if you look through the teams at the moment, I mean, I'm just looking through my ticker over the next 5, right? Pedro is an option. Watkins is an option. Cunha and Larson are options. Delap, Isak,
cheap
Evan Nilsson, Havertz, Jackson, Visser, right? And I've not even mentioned Haaland or a Nunes or Solanke or Hoyland. Yeah, so many forward options. We haven't mentioned Chris Wood. So most of the teams have a good forward option, more than half, I would say, and that's not always felt the case.
Yeah, I would agree. It's been a situation where we're like defense forward is where the graveyard is for a lot of the options.
It definitely feels like a front three game at the moment.
Mm.
And I realize, listen, there'll be people who have like a Haaland and a like a Solanke ticket, for example, and have like a Ross Stewart and a decent midfield five. Get that. That's fine. I would want a front three at the moment.
Ketan Chopra, this is an interesting question, James. Has FPL been reduced to a game of captaincy? You can have a decent, you can score decent with 9 players blanking and the captain hauling, or was it always the case? It feels different this season. I just think there's been a lot of double-digit hauls this year, is the way I feel, that have kind of, and the big players getting those double-digit hauls, that makes it feel like you hit your captaincy, you're generally okay.
Yeah, and I also think it changes now for me, for example, where I've taken on Salah and Haaland on the captaincy up to this point. I think I'd only captained Palmer twice, maybe, I think. I really have been looking at alternatives. Now with these swing of fixtures, like how many times now from here on in I'm going to take on Salah and Palmer? It's not going to be many. Maybe Bruno 13. But with the fixtures coming up now into the new year, there's not going to be many weeks I think I'll take either of them on. It'll be one or the other most weeks now. So I don't know if there's an impact on that and the fact that I've been dropping in rank recently. But I would prefer to look at it and say, yeah, if you'd offered me 55k or wherever I am in this period, don't look at the last couple of weeks being difficult. Would you have taken that? I'd be like, yeah, absolutely, mate. So I feel in a decent-ish position to compete with the 12 wildcarders, but yeah, I can't see me taking on captaincy too much. I mean, to be honest, at the moment, 13, I'll probably captain Salah against Man City.
Really?
Yeah. I can't see them stopping Liverpool from having chances.
Yeah, I think I need to see how City get on in 12.
Well, against my team.
Yeah, see
I
if
can tell you that
they've,
now already. They'll win about 5-2, mate.
Well, if there's any improvement or Pep's found a way of solving this problem, then I'd be less likely to want to do it. Yeah, definitely one to bear in mind. Right, James, we've been rambling for over 2 hours. I'm sure people have got better things to do. Oh, no, they don't, because it's an international break. So I hope you've enjoyed
It's a bit
the
harsh.
show. Oh, come on, well, people. I'm not hiding behind the fact that I'm just not that bothered about international football. I don't even know who Portugal are playing, James. I hope you enjoyed the show. As always, give it a like and subscribe and leave us a nice 5-star review wherever you are listening to the pod. And we'll be back at you over the coming days. Myself, Clayton will be joining as well, and James. Stay safe. Look after yourselves. Ciao for now.
Thanks, everyone. Be nice to each other. Play it your way. Cue music, please. Man child.